Chapter 1148. Jiu glared at Lu Qin. This guy was still chatting with the people from the demonic academy. She was about to detonate her spiritual core. Just how little did he take her seriously? Even if you can survive, it's impossible for you to save Jiu. Jiu said angrily. Lu Qin summoned Little Originator and asked it to protect the people from the demonic academy. Then, he looked at Jiu. Actually, I've been waiting for you to say that. Lu Qin said suddenly. Jiu agreed to let you devour her consciousness on the premise that you protect Taiwu Star. If you detonate your spiritual core, it means you have no intention of keeping your promise with the Mu Mansion. I can't save Jiu, but she can do it herself. This battle is not between you and me, but between Jiu and Jiu of the Mu Mansion. With that, Lu Qin took out 2 drops of crystal and looked at Jiu. Dark Eclipse, are you wondering why you can't fully control Jiu's consciousness? Look at this and you'll know. This time, without needing Mengpe to activate it, the teardrop released Jiu's memories. The ancient battlefield, the beginner's village, the earth village, the bridge of helplessness, and the Mu Mansion. Looking at the memories, Jiu's eyelids twitched, and her eyes flickered. Damn it, her consciousness, is starting to go out of control. Lu Qin's eyes softened. Jiu, when you chose to seal your memories, you probably didn't know that the person who scared you was me. We knew each other when we were in the first heaven. But at that time, you were so scared that you quit the competition when you met me. I wanted to meet you a few more times. Lu Qin couldn't help but laugh. At Niayuan village, I recognized you at a glance. Unfortunately, you didn't know that the bad guy who caused your team to be wiped out was me. Thank you for standing up for me when I was besieged by bounty hunters. Thank you for standing up to protect my people when Green Wolf was slaughtering Earth's players. Thank you for helping my people when I wasn't around. I know that's the real you, not the lunatic you are now. Jiu clutched her head and roared in pain, shut up. Stop. Don't say any more. Lu Qin obviously wouldn't listen to her and continued, actually, I only found out later that Mu Xian was your clansman. He told me something that I still remember even now. Stop talking. Jiu covered her ears in pain, but every word of Lu Qin's words reached her mind. The most important right of a person is the right to choose. Perhaps he realized this because of his guilt towards you. Jiu, even if it's Mu Xian, I hope you can make your own choice. Do you believe in yourself, or do you believe in dark erosion? Make your choice. Dark erosion fell to the ground in pain and curled up into a ball. Right, before Mu Xian's weapon disintegration, he told me that he hoped I could go to the Mu residence to propose marriage. He must have regretted his decision at that time and hoped I could be by your side. I'm sorry I didn't go to you earlier and let you bear so much alone. As a friend, I couldn't help it all. If you can, come back. No matter what, I'm willing to face it with you. Suddenly, dark erosion knelt on the ground and vomited violently. Although she couldn't vomit anything, it was obvious she was extremely uncomfortable. At this time, she couldn't even use any skills, let alone exploding her spiritual pills. Jiu, don't listen to him. I will fulfill my promise. I was just scaring him. Dark erosion explained painfully. Anyone could tell that she was patronizing Jiu. It could also be seen how intense the battle of consciousness was in dark erosion's mind. In a battle of consciousness, the deciding factor was not strength, but whether one's will was firm or not. Jiu's will might not be inferior to dark erosion's. After such a long time, even though dark erosion had gathered 9 pieces of dark erosion chaos, he still couldn't completely erase Jiu's consciousness. At this time, the most important point was that dark erosion planned to violate the agreement with the Mu residents. Then Jiu would no longer have any scruples and fight for control of consciousness with all her might. At this time, someone suddenly appeared beside Lu Qin. This person had a hunched back, dark skin, and a skinny body. Standing beside Lu Chen, he looked even more unsightly. However, it was such a guy who almost made Lu Chen lose in his hands. Solipsistic, what are you trying to steal? Sky Thief looked at Dark Erosion Jiu, who was struggling on the ground. I can't steal her Dark Erosion set. It has already recognized her as its master. Just steal her attribute. Distract her and help Jiu regain control of consciousness. Oh, the key is spiritual power, so she won't really explode. That's a piece of cake. Sky Thief flashed to Dark Erosion Jiu, side. Who? Get lost. Dark Erosion Jiu, was fighting with Jiu, for consciousness. She had no time to care about the extra person beside her. She waved her hand wildly, but it was obviously not enough to touch Sky Thief. Sky Thief swaps. Sky Thief turned into a black shadow. Every time he passed by Dark Erosion Jiu, Dark Erosion Jiu's attributes would decrease greatly. If it was under normal circumstances, Dark Erosion Jiu might be able to deal with Sky Thief. However, she could not even take care of herself and could not chase after Sky Thief. She could only let Sky Thief steal her attributes. Her spiritual power decreased by 80,000, her spiritual power decreased by 80,000, her spiritual power decreased by 80,000. This series of numbers flooded the screen. Dark Erosion Jiu's eyes were filled with horror. Directly stealing her own attributes. What the hell was this? Dark Erosion was different from other cultivators. Due to her special identity, she did not have a battle soul. She only had extremely high attributes. However, Sky Thief's ability was to steal her own attributes. Dark Erosion Jiu watched her spiritual power decrease rapidly, but she could not do anything. Dark Erosion Jiu was facing enemies from both inside and outside. Even Dark Erosion Jiu could not bear to let Sky Thief steal her attributes so casually. In less than 3 minutes, Tai Hao suddenly realized that Dark Erosion Jiu's level had decreased. 8-star Human King Realm. Heavens, who is that stooped old man? How did he do it? A sea of clouds suddenly thought of something. Her level decreased. No. Could it be? Mabe, a sea of clouds, Yi Tian, Tai Hao, and the others looked at each other. They all thought of the answer. Is it that thing in the main spirit vein? It turned out that Lu Chen had not come out empty-handed when he went deep into the main spirit vein a few days ago. He had already subdued this freak. On the way out of Zhongxian-gu, Lu Chen did not go directly to the Immortal Corpse Mound. Instead, he took a detour to the Divinity Demon Academy. At that time, he did not find Sky Thief, but Sky Thief found him. In order to repay his kindness, Sky Thief followed Lu Chen to the Immortal Corpse Mound. At this time, Lu Chen could not help, but Sky Thief could disturb Jiu's new divinity without harming her body. He could help Jiu. 8-star, 7-star, 6-star. Jiu's level dropped rapidly. In this situation, no one could remain calm. Jiu was in more and more pain. She raised her head and wailed, "Nameless. I will kill you." Unfortunately, at this time, whether she could hold on was a problem, let alone kill Nameless. At this time, in the Demonic Academy's camp, Yifan fell into deep thought in the distance. Junior brother Yifan, what are you thinking about? Chu Tian asked curiously when he saw Yifan in a daze. Do you feel like you lost out because you did not bet? Yifan shook his head. I've already washed my hands of it. TCH, who would believe that? Xiao Zhan immediately said, Hey, aren't you thinking about betting? Why are you in a daze? Yifan took a deep breath. The Dean did not deceive me. He is indeed a love saint. In the future, when it comes to finding an immortal companion, I must consult the Dean. Chapter 1149. Half an hour later, Jiu-Er's level had dropped to 1-star Human King realm. Suddenly, Jiu-Er stopped twitching and curled up into a ball, motionless. Lu Chen hurriedly stopped Sky Pilfer and walked over to Jiu-Er to check on her. Jiu-Er? Lu Chen asked. Jiu-Er opened her eyes slightly and looked at Lu Chen. Her eyes were no longer dark purple. They were now red, but her gaze was clear. Nameless. Jiu-Er said weakly before fainting again. Jiu-Er. Lu Chen hurriedly picked her up. 10-winged, Divinity Academy. With that, Lu Chen summoned 10-winged and leaped up, heading straight for the Divinity Academy. The disciples of the Divinity Academy were quite helpless. They wanted to go back, but the Dean's Mount hadn't gone far yet. They could only wait. After the people of the Divinity Academy left, dozens of figures walked out of the Immortal Corpse Mound. Qingli and the others looked at the battlefield that had changed beyond recognition, then at the dissipating dark clouds in the sky. Almost all of them did the same thing. They took out their astrolabes, calibrated their positions, and observed the stars. Oh no, it's a sign of great calamity. The competition of providence has caused the stars to shift. In the past 10 years, the heavenly tribulation has been several times stronger than before. Damn it, I thought the two would fight and both sides would be injured. Who would have thought that the absorption of spiritual energy from heaven and earth would help us pass the tribulation? I feel a little unlucky to be in the same generation as Nameless. The divinity demon defying fate is a Jyotian taboo. If he doesn't pass the tribulation soon, we'll all be unlucky. It's best to send that jinx away quickly. Otherwise, none of us will pass the tribulation. Everyone sighed and shook their heads. They could only accept this result. In the Divinity Academy, Little Green gave Jiu-Er a pill. Although Jiu-Er hadn't recovered yet, her condition had stabilized. Lu Chen hurriedly asked Taihao. Senior Taihao, I don't think Jiu-Er has forced out the dark corrosion. If that's the case, will she be possessed by the dark corrosion again? Taihao looked at Jiu-Er and frowned. From what I know, there have only been 3 dark erosion chaos appearances, including this one. The first 2 were after the dark erosion was defeated, and the set was scattered all over Jyotian. Only this time did the dark erosion not collapse. Previously, I saw that Jiu-Er's eyes were clear. It definitely wasn't a sign of dark erosion. I guessed that she had already seized control of her consciousness. As for not completely forcing out dark corrosion, I think it's possible what you're worried about. However, it's probably very difficult for dark corrosion to possess Jiu-Er's consciousness again. Lu Chen was still worried. Should we find a way to force the dark corrosion out? Taihao said, that depends on what you think. You have to know that. Let's not talk about whether we can find such a method. If we really force out the dark corrosion, Jiu-Er's strength will be directly reset to 0. Now, as long as she can suppress the dark corrosion, she will still be a 9-star monarch. Of course, you have to ask your friend to return the stolen spiritual power to her. Lu Chen thought about it. It seemed that the most important thing for this matter was to seek Jiu-Er's opinion. They would talk about it when she woke up. Lu Chen looked at Heaven Stealing. Senior Heaven Stealing, can you stay at the God-Fiend Academy for a while and wait for Jiu-Er to wake up? Heaven Stealing answered readily, I have nowhere to go. Although I don't like the Void Academy, this is no longer the Void Academy. The God-Fiend Academy is just being rebuilt on the old site. The grudge between me and the Void Academy should not fall on the God-Fiend. There's no harm in staying. Lu Chen heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. Thank you, Senior. By the way, has Senior Chiu Ming woken up? Heaven Stealing sighed. Not yet. She needs a long time to recover. I'm still thinking about where to steal some elixirs to help her recover. Lu Chen panicked. Heaven Stealing looked at Lu Chen's expression and laughed. Nameless, don't worry. I'll steal from anyone but you. Besides, there's nothing to steal from your little academy. But I just heard that you participated in some Heaven's Pride competition and the Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace rewarded you with a tribulation pill? Is the Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace the strongest force now? They should have a lot of high-grade elixirs. Taihao reacted quickly. Taihao had seen heaven stealing before. Other than Lu Chen's creation space that could subdue him, no one else could. Stealing attributes, stealing equipment, who could beat him? Even if they agreed, they would lose a few levels in the end. In short, this master was someone they could not afford to offend. Taihao hurriedly said, Our Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace doesn't dare to be called the strongest. Moreover, we're not good at refining elixirs. We only need one tribulation pill, and we don't have any left. The Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace is yours. Heaven Stealing looked at Taihao in surprise. Yes. Oh, Nameless, he's your friend? Heaven Stealing asked Lu Chen directly. Lu Chen looked at Taihao's trembling appearance and found it funny. When did he see the master of the Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace so panicked? After all, if Heaven Stealing wanted to steal, even the Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace could come and go freely. Senior Heaven Stealing, Senior Taihao has helped me a lot. If you need elixirs, I'll get Little Green to refine them for you. Although Little Green hasn't broken through to Immortal Medicine Master yet, the elixirs she can refine are very high grade. Heaven Stealing nodded and looked at the busy Lu Yi. Miss Lu, I saw you refine elixirs before. Your talent is 1 in a million. It's not impossible for you to break through to Immortal Medicine Master. Lu Yi smiled politely, many thanks for Senior Heaven Stealing's concern. Boss has already helped me get the peak grade elixir formula. It's just that I'm still missing a few rare herbs. After I find them, I will try to break through to Immortal Medicine Master. At that time, I will definitely help Senior to refine the elixirs and help Senior Qiuming to wake up sooner. Lu Yi was a ghost pet. In this aspect, she was a little similar to an equipment spirit. Looking at Lu Yi's cultured and refined appearance, Heaven Stealing seemed to see Qiuming. Both of them had elegant and refined personalities. This made Heaven Stealing like this little ghost pet even more. Which herbs are you missing? This. Lu Yi was a little embarrassed. The other party clearly had a reason for asking this question. However, after the accident with Lu Chen, Lu Yi wouldn't accept other people's good intentions. Lu Chen smiled and said, It's Buddha Lotus Heart and God Entangling Vine. Right now, I haven't encountered these two herbs. However, to break through to Immortal Medicine Master, I need to try a lot. It seems like becoming an Immortal Medicine Master isn't something that can be done overnight. Taihao frowned and said, Buddha Lotus Heart and God Entangling Vine. Miss Lu, don't tell me you're planning to use the God Buddha Golden Lotus Elixir to break through to Immortal Medicine Master. That elixir's ingredients are too rare and the success rate is extremely low. The chances of forming a high-grade elixir are even lower. Hearing this, Lu Chen immediately glared at Taihao. Wasn't my peak-grade elixir a reward you gave me? Taihao was a bit embarrassed. As the palace lord, he naturally wouldn't ask about everyone's rewards in the prodigy competition. This. It's my negligence. I'll give you another formula. Use the Shenyuan body tempering elixir to break through. From what I know, all alchemists will use this formula. It's much easier than the God Buddha Golden Lotus elixir. Right at this moment, Heaven Stealing spoke, no need to change. Alchemists and cultivators are actually the same concept. The stronger the resistance, the stronger you will be as long as you can overcome it. Your future development will be better. Therefore, use the God Buddha Golden Lotus. The two herbs you mentioned, I know a place that has them. I'll take you there. Heaven Stealing said with certainty. Chapter 1150. Perhaps Sky Thief was too excited and blurted it out. He quickly realized that Lu Chen would definitely be worried about Lu Yi, so he handed the fire stick to Lu Chen. Nameless, Chiu Ming is resting inside. It's inconvenient for me to bring her along. Help me take good care of her. Lu Chen was naturally clear about Sky Thief's feelings for Chiu Ming. The fact that Sky Thief left Chiu Ming in his care meant that he would guarantee Lu Yi's safety. For Little Green, this might be an opportunity for her. Lu Chen thought for a moment and said, "Senior Sky Thief, how long will it take?" "That place is in the sixth heaven." "It's in the sixth heaven. As for the time, there are plenty of materials there. What I mean is that if Little Green can refine pills in the Blessed Enclave, the possibility of her breakthrough will be higher than in other places. I just don't know if she's willing to refine pills there." Tai Hao's eyes widened. "Blessed Enclave? There's a Blessed Enclave in the sixth heaven?" Sky Thief smiled. "It was left behind by my master, my friend. Naturally, you won't be able to find it." Apart from Lu Chen, no one else knew that Sky Thief was an artifact spirit. Sky Thief didn't want to mention it to anyone else, so he promptly changed the master to friend. Tai Hao took a deep breath and said to Lu Chen, "Nameless, let Little Green break through there. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Lu Chen already understood. The Blessed Enclave mentioned by Sky Thief was left behind by his original master. How could a place left behind by a true immortal be bad? This was definitely the biggest opportunity that Little Green had ever encountered. After thinking for a moment, Lu Chen nodded and agreed. At night, Lu Chen summoned Little Green alone. "Little Green, I've already discussed with Senior Sky Thief. I'll let Little Critter accompany you. Even though Senior Heaven Pilfer's strength is terrifying, due to his identity as an artifact spirit, he's a bit weak in a head-on battle in the end. The little beast can guarantee your safety. These are 2 interstellar sound transmitting talismans. I forcefully bought 5 of them from Senior Tai Hao. 2 for you and 1 for Senior Heaven Pilfering. If you encounter any danger, send a sound transmission to me. If you can't find me, send a sound transmission to Senior Tai Hao." Lu Chen handed 2 golden sound transmitting talismans to Little Green. Little Green's eyes were red as he took the voice transmission talisman. Little Green didn't know how his boss had forcefully bought the interstellar voice transmitting talisman, but his boss had actually spent a huge sum of money to buy 5-star grade voice transmitting talismans, and 3 of them were to ensure his safety. This was enough to show how worried Lu Chen was about him. He didn't know how long this training would take. Ever since Little Green started following Lu Chen, it had never left Lu Chen for such a long time. Even though Senior Heaven Pilfer was accompanying him, Boss was still worried about his own safety. To have such a master, as a ghost pet, she didn't have any more extravagant hopes. "Boss, I will definitely break through and become an immortal apothecary. I want to walk down this path with you," Lu Yi said with a choked voice. "You must wait for me to come back." Lu Chen smiled and stroked Lu Yi's hair. "Silly girl, of course you have to walk down this path with me. I also believe that you will become stronger. This opportunity is very rare for you. Break through properly and don't think about other things." Little Green nodded heavily. "Oh right, boss, when Miss Jiu wakes up, where are you going next?" Jiu asked. From Lu Chen's words, she seemed to have heard that Lu Chen had other things to do. Otherwise, it was impossible for the interstellar voice transmitting talisman to not be able to contact him. Lu Chen said, "I don't know what those super experts are up to recently. Also, I don't know what Purple Knight Emperor and Heavenly Music Pavilion are planning. I plan to wait and see for now. However, I still have to find time to return to Earth. Lu Yi's marriage should be finalized soon. I want to go to Gufei's world to investigate." At the mention of Lu Yi, Lu Chen couldn't help but laugh. "This girl, I still don't have a partner. She's about to get married, but she's not waiting for me. Boss, most people probably can't afford to wait for you." Little Green said with a snicker. Lu Chen didn't hear anything strange and said to himself, however, it won't be that easy for Gufei to become my brother-in-law. It's best if they ruin it, boss. You also have such a dark side. Little Green looked at Lu Chen in amusement. Lu Chen laughed. I'm just joking. However, I really can't bear to part with that girl. Although they're both in Jiutian, but this feeling is a little indescribable. For so many years, Lu Chen and his sister depended on each other. An elder brother was like a father. This was probably the feeling of a father marrying off his daughter. Alright, when wakes up, you'll have to leave. I'll help you pack. The next afternoon, woke up. The moment she opened her eyes, she saw a familiar figure sitting by her bed. Lu Chen saw that had woken up and was so excited that he almost shouted. Frowned slightly and was a little confused. Nameless, where am I? In my God and Devil Holy Courtyard. God and Devil Holy Courtyard? Had a headache, but she gradually regained her memory. Looked at the nervous man beside her, and her eyes became more and more aggrieved. In the end, she threw herself into his arms and cried. Nameless, she had too many things she wanted to say, but she didn't know where to start. Lu Chen stroked Er's head and softly comforted her. Alright. I know you've been wronged, but it's all better now. Er's emotions gradually stabilized, and Lu Chen was in no hurry to tell her about the dark erosion. Today, he would accompany to talk about the past and enlighten her. 3 days later, Er's emotions had completely stabilized. After the dark erosion took control of her consciousness, it did many things to kill and rob, but she had no choice. However, under Lu Chen's guidance, also knew that it was the dark erosion not the wood manor She finally felt much more at ease. Seeing that the time was right, Lu Chen asked about the dark erosion's current situation. The dark erosion hasn't disappeared, said. But it can no longer control my thoughts. Back then, it violated the agreement so that it can no longer possess my consciousness. Instead, it's being used by me. Lu Chen's eyes widened. This result was better than what Taihao had expected. Could already control the dark erosion. In other words, the dark erosion had become a part of Er's strength. In that case, Lu Chen could finally get heaven pilfering to return the stolen attributes to Er's level returned to the peak of the 9-star monarch realm. You really profited from a disaster this time, Lu Chen said with a smile. Only looked at Lu Chen. I suddenly remembered something. You said that great-grandfather asked you to come to the Wood Manor to propose marriage. Why didn't you come? Lu Chen was stunned. Why did Er's thoughts jump so much? These two topics were too different. You don't like me? Asked. Lu Chen's heart was beating very fast. He had always had a good impression of and she had left her memories of him in the river of forgetfulness. It was obvious that liked him. In other words, it was very likely that he would bid farewell to being single. It was even to the point of talking about marriage. Just as Lu Chen mustered up his courage and was about to speak his mind, the door was suddenly pushed open. A youth stood at the door angrily. The little beast was filled with anger at this moment. It angrily said to Lu Chen, Dad, I went out with Sister Green. Why did you give Sister Green 2 voice transmission talismans but not one for me? Tell me, aren't you biased? Chapter 1151. Dad? Looked at this married man in horror. Your son is already so big. I understand everything. Rushed out of the door, leaving behind the father and son pair. Dad, what did Sister understand? Little Beast was confused. Lu Chen took a deep breath and walked to Little Beast's side. He put his hand on Little Beast's shoulder and said earnestly, "Little Beast, this is a very important opportunity for you to go out and train. You must cultivate well outside. I told you to protect Sister Green. Why did you use a voice transmission talisman? Besides, if anything happens to you, Little Green will also send a voice transmission to me. So, don't worry about the voice transmission talisman. Cultivate well. This time, don't go home if your strength doesn't increase by 5 or 10 times." Little Beast blinked his eyes. "Dad, you trust me that much?" "Of course. After all, you are the Beast God." "Okay, I know Dad likes me the most. Then I'm leaving." Before leaving, Little Beast gave Lu Chen a big hug. "Dad, I will miss you. Also, hurry up and find me a stepmother. Don't always be single." Lu Chen's eyes were filled with tears. What a sensible child. After Sky Thief returned the attributes to Jiu, they were about to set off. Lu Chen personally sent them out of the God Demon Academy. After returning to the academy, a sea of clouds said that Jiu had already left. Before leaving, Jiu left a letter. Lu Chen hurriedly opened it to check. "Nameless, although you didn't say the reason, I know why you didn't come to propose marriage. You have more important things to do. You won't stop for any woman. I don't want to be an obstacle to your growth. Actually, I just wanted an answer from you that day. But it seems like the time isn't right. Nameless, I'm leaving first. Since I've obtained Dark Erosion's strength, I have to shoulder the responsibility of protecting planet Taiwu. So I'm leaving first. Finally, I really want to thank you in person, but I'm afraid that the word thank you won't be enough to express my gratitude, and it will also make us seem distant. Then, I hope that we'll have a chance to meet again. By the way, there's one more thing. Even if you had proposed marriage at that time, I might not have agreed." "Humph." Lu Chen read the letter that Jiu had left for him seriously and sighed. "Sigh, I was just one step away from being single twice, but it was all ruined by Little Beast. Was this guy sent by the heavens to punish me?" No matter what, Jiu had left, and the marriage proposal seemed to have fallen through. Not only that, Lu Chen looked around the room. He could no longer see the girl who was always busy grinding herbs and refining pills. The room suddenly became somewhat deserted. It seemed that Lu Chen had long been accustomed to having Lu Yi by his side. Now that he couldn't see Lu Yi, he was somewhat uncomfortable. Lu Chen stood up. "The dark corrosion has been dealt with, but in the end it's deserted. Forget it, since we're all out, I'll go and see Lu Yi." After saying that, Lu Chen informed a sea of clouds and the others before heading to Zhongxian Gu. Gu Fei and the others were now at the 5th heaven. This time, Lu Chen directly descended to the 5th heaven. This time, he wasn't in a hurry to go back. He could wait until next month when Zhongxian Gu opened the teleportation gate again. If it really didn't work, he could also directly enter the Tong Tian Tower. It just so happened that he still had old scores to settle with the puppet master. Just as he arrived at the 5th heaven, Lu Chen looked at the familiar world and took a deep breath. I, the solipsistic, am back. Lu Chen's location wasn't far from his country of origin, so Lu Chen headed there first. Just 10 miles away from the main mine, a large city had been built. From the size of the city, it didn't even lose to the Dongyu Imperial Palace. At this time, the city was holding some kind of ceremony, and a large number of people had gathered in the city. Lu Chen was directly brought to the square by the crowd. Perhaps it was too crowded, but the people here didn't recognize Lu Chen. Only a few people occasionally looked at Lu Chen and muttered, "Why does he look so familiar?" Although Lu Chen's appearance didn't change much, his height had reached 185 meters. His temperament was also very different from when he left the 5th heaven. What's going on? Lu Chen was a little puzzled. There was a huge statue erected in the square. It was at least 30 meters tall. The statue had a head of white hair and an extremely handsome face. Lu Chen recognized at a glance that the statue was of him. They actually erected a statue of him. The feet of the statue were already shiny from the touch of the people. It was probably because the people liked to touch the statue to make wishes. In the crowd, Lu Chen still saw many people making wishes to the statue when they passed by. Then, they touched the toes of the statue and muttered, "The origin God bless me. I hope I can pass the assessment this time. The origin God bless me. I hope I can break through to the earth cultivation realm as soon as possible." In the crowd, Lu Chen was speechless. How could he bless others to pass the assessment? He had just gotten the lowest score in history. How could he bless others? No matter what, the people were extremely respectful to the statue and were unusually sincere when they made wishes. Not long after, a woman walked out of the city gate tower in front of the square. She held a golden talisman and said excitedly to everyone below the stage, "Everyone, our first reality extraction scroll has been successfully refined." There was a thunderous cheer below the stage. Although the first reality extraction scroll only had one attribute and it took many attempts to succeed, this didn't affect the people's excitement. Lu Chen finally understood that today was the celebration banquet for the natives refining the reality extraction scroll. For the Earth players, this was definitely good news. For the natives, from the supply of raw materials to the successful refining of the reality extraction scroll, it would also bring them considerable benefits, which could be used to exchange for more resources. Lu Chen didn't know the person who announced the results, but Lu Chen knew almost all of the people standing behind the city gate tower. There were leaders of the natives and people from the Earth Alliance. More and more people from Earth are going up to the fifth heaven. The guide plan is indeed powerful. This is a good thing. After Lu Chen finished speaking, he went to find Lu Yi and the others. In the western part of Dun City, Lu Chen finally found the settlement of the Earth players. Although there weren't many Earth players, the living area was not small. It took up almost half of Dun City. It seemed that the natives had prepared a place for the Earth players in advance. As soon as they saw Lu Chen, the Earth players who were in charge of guarding the place were stunned. Mad God? Am I seeing things? Is that the Mad God? The others hurriedly looked at Lu Chen. After a while, they finally recognized Lu Chen. Suddenly, a few men screamed, "It really is the Mad God." The patrolling soldiers behind them and the Earth players on the training ground all rushed over when they heard the screams. As soon as they saw Lu Chen, dozens of people rushed over. The news spread faster than Lu Chen, and dozens of people rushed out from behind. Other than Xiao Yao, Lu Yi, and Xing Chen, there were also their friends Frost Silk, Frost Dance, North Snow, Gufei, Dongfang Ji, Zhenggui Yanran, Cowherd, and even Mountain Strength, Chasing Cloud, and others. Lu Chen saw many familiar people rushing towards him from afar. They were all old friends. Lu Chen smiled and quickened his pace. Chapter 1152. Big Brother Beishan. Chasing Cloud. Lu Chen looked at Beishan and the others excitedly. He did not expect them to come from the fourth layer of heaven. "You guys are all here. I thought you guys went to the celebration party at the plaza. Good lad. I thought I would never see you again." Beishan patted Lu Chen's shoulder. "We just came to the fifth layer of heaven and we actually met you. We got the news a long time ago. The natives' higher-ups informed us. There were too many people at the plaza, so we didn't go." Chasing Cloud said. "Brat." Cowherd smiled and said, "How is Little Originator?" Lu Chen immediately summoned Little Originator. When Little Originator saw Cowherd, it ran to him and rubbed against him. Speaking of which, when Lu Chen was not around, Cowherd had taken care of Little Originator. Little Originator and Cowherd's relationship was not shallow. Xing Chen said, "Leader, the natives also miss you. Since you're back, do you want to tell them?" Lu Chen shook his head. "Forget it. It's good enough to see the natives develop so well. I can only stay for a month this time. I'm afraid they will go through a lot of trouble if they know I'm here." "Brother." Lu Yi happily hugged Lu Chen's arm. "Brother." Beishue Gufei also called out. Lu Chen rolled his eyes at Beishue Gufei. "You're older than me. Why are you calling me brother?" Beishue Gufei was a little embarrassed. "You're Yi's brother. Naturally, you're my brother too. Age has nothing to do with seniority." Lu Chen looked at Beishue Gufei's embarrassed expression and couldn't help but snicker. This guy was a rare genius in the way of the sword. "Gufei, I asked Yi to tell you that I want to go to your world to take a look. Have you applied?" Gufei said, "I have. Originally, the family didn't want you to go. After all, you're too strong now. They have some scruples." Lu Chen nodded. "And then?" "Then, my sister asked you to go. They agreed in the end." "Your sister?" "Yes, my younger sister is Beishue Qingling. You two have met once before, but you might not remember." Lu Chen definitely didn't remember, but no matter what, since the North Shui family had agreed, he should go back and thank them. It was rare for Lu Chen to come back. With so many of his friends here, he definitely wouldn't be able to leave on the first day. That night, everyone gathered together and got drunk with good wine and good meat. Lu Chen woke up at noon the next day. Beishue Gufei and Lu Yi were already prepared. The three of them headed straight for a teleportation gate in their country of origin. When the three of them opened their eyes after being teleported through the portal, they found themselves in a world of ice and snow. "Gufei, this is your world?" Lu Chen was a little surprised. Lu Chen also felt that this was the first time he had come to this so-called alien planet. Gufei smiled and said proudly, "Big brother, this place is covered in ice and snow all year round. It's called the Ice Plateau Planet. My family is one of the top families here. Big brother, follow me closely. 90% of the surface of the Ice Plateau Planet is covered in ice and snow. Don't fall into the ice caverns. There are many powerful magical beasts in there. If you don't come out in time, there's almost no chance of survival." Gufei explained. Lu Yi asked curiously, "There are magical beasts in your world?" "Yes, the Ice Plateau Planet was originally a cultivation planet. There's spiritual energy here too. Our physical strength is much stronger than your Earth's. It's not strange for magical beasts to appear here." "You're a high martial arts world?" Lu Chen asked. "It's not high martial arts. Your Earth is a technological world. Martial arts have not been developed yet. We've only developed it slightly. Compared to the worlds of other races, we're far behind." Gufei said as he took out an ice bead. "Big brother, wait for a moment. I'll contact my family and ask them to send an ice anchor to pick us up." Lu Chen thought for a moment and said, "Gufei, don't bother. I have a mount that can be extracted." "Oh. That's great." Lu Chen immediately summoned his flying shuttle. After all, a 10-winged beast would be too conspicuous here. It was better to use the TIE shuttle. How about I give you this TIE shuttle in the future?" Lu Chen suddenly asked. Lu Yi's eyes widened. "Big brother, you're giving me the TIE shuttle? What will you use in the future?" "I also have a mount that can be extracted. 9-winged. I leveled up. I'm now a 10-winged beast." Lu Chen said calmly, "Didn't Li Muhua tell you last time?" Lu Yi was stunned for a long time before she said angrily, "That guy didn't tell me." The speed of the flying shuttle was also very fast. After a few hours, they were already close to the Northern Snow Clan's territory. When they were about to reach the Northern Snow Clan's territory, Gufei turned to Lu Chen and said, "Big brother, our ice plane planet respects strength. Right now, the clan's disciple selection is just around the corner. You can take a look when the time comes. Oh right, because the outer clan members have also come to the clan, many people don't know Big Brother's identity. However, the members of the Northern Snow clan are more or less arrogant. If there's any ignorant person who offends Big Brother, I hope Big Brother won't lower yourself to their level. Lu Chen smiled faintly. What do I have to lower myself to their level? However, if I agree to your marriage with Yi, don't let your family bully my sister. Of course not. After all, I'm still ranked high in the Northern Snow clan. Gu Fei said proudly. Lu Yi snorted, if you're so powerful, why don't you mention it now that you've defeated my big brother? At the mention of this, Gu Fei immediately lost his temper. Defeated Big Brother? Forget it, I've been thrown further and further behind. Competing with Big Brother is exhausting. I'd rather compete with myself. Lu Chen nodded, constantly surpassing yourself is the most effective way to become stronger. As they spoke, the three of them had already reached the Northern Snow clan's territory. Lu Chen put away the shuttle to show his respect. The Northern Snow clan occupied an entire complex of buildings, occupying several mountains. Its scale was extremely large. At this moment, there were more than 10 people anxiously waiting in front of the gate, including the Northern Snow clan's patriarch, Northern Snow Lingjun. Lord Lingjun of North Snow and a beautiful girl were supporting an old woman. The old woman held a dragon staff in her hand, waiting eagerly. Not long after, they saw the figures of 3 people walking towards them. They're here. An old woman smiled, Gu Fei has finally brought back my great-granddaughter-in-law. Northern Snow Lingjun's gaze fell on Lu Chen, solipsistic. The young girl beside the old woman tilted her head, looking at Lu Chen with smiling eyes. Big brother, we meet again. Northern Snow Gu Fei immediately introduced Lu Chen. Lu Chen still remembered some of the Northern Snow clansmen he had met in the Jiutian, but he didn't know the old woman and the young girl. Big brother, this is my great-great-grandmother, and this is Beishue Qingling, my little sister. Lu Chen brought Lu Yi and cupped their fists in greetings, great-great-grandmother. Good, good. Quick, it's cold outside, let's go inside. Great-grandmother beamed as she looked at the Lu siblings. She held Lu Yi's hand and refused to let go. This daughter is so beautiful. Lu Chen smiled faintly. It seemed that great-grandmother liked Lu Yi very much. Then Lu Chen looked at Beishue Qingling, your Beishue Qingling. I have to thank you for coming to Ice Plateau Planet, but, do we know each other? Beishue Qingling smiled, her clear eyes looking at Lu Chen. Big brother, you really don't remember me? Chapter 1153. Beishue Qingling opened her palm, and an orange gem appeared in her fair and delicate palm. Then, Qingling looked at Lu Chen with a smile. Lu Chen looked at the gem strangely. After thinking for a while, he finally realized what it was. The mission gem from the Heart Refining Academy. You're that girl. Before entering the Heart Refining Academy, one had to go through the jungle test and snatch gems. Lu Chen had already collected all the gems. When he was about to leave, he met a girl who was crying because she didn't have enough gems. He casually gave her one of the gems. Lu Chen didn't take this matter to heart at all, but who knew that Qingling had always remembered it, and even brought the gem with her. Aya, you were so young back then. You're already a big girl now. Lu Chen couldn't help but praise how time flew. Qingling smiled embarrassedly. Nameless big brother, other than growing taller, you haven't changed much. Nameless big brother, where's your bloodlust sword god outfit? At that time, Lu Chen was wearing that coquettish red dress. Lu Chen shook his head helplessly. Oh no, I didn't find anything similar along the way. Qingling lowered her head, seemingly disappointed. She always remembered the scene of the big brother in the red outfit giving her the gem. However, the bloodlust sword god was gone. However, so much time had passed. Nameless didn't change. Nameless big brother, your level is 1 star. Wild Theo the Great. Beishue Qingling noticed the badge on Lu Chen's chest. Are you still a savage? Lu Chen was a little embarrassed. He corrected her, it's Wild Theo the Great, not a savage. Beishue Qingling asked curiously, is this different? Faced with Beishue Qingling's sharp question, Lu Chen was speechless. Seeing that Nameless couldn't answer, Qingling smiled mischievously, brother Nameless, you should take this off. People who don't know you will definitely think that your badge is fake. Lu Chen's focus wasn't on how others would view it, but, could this thing be taken off? That's right, this is the real world. Lu Chen tried to take off the badge, and sure enough, it was taken off. Heh, you can really take it off. I didn't know about this before. North Snow walked in front of Qingling and Lu Chen and looked at Qingling. The two of them were chatting quite well. He cupped his fists towards Lu Chen and said, let's go in and talk. It just so happens that the family's elite disciple selection is about to begin. I saved a spot for you. Lu Chen nodded. Alright, it would be good to see how strong the Bei Shui clan was. Speaking of which, judging from the size of the North Snow Martial Academy, this family was definitely not short of money. In the past, Lu Chen had never dreamed that Lu Yi would possibly marry into a wealthy family, and a wealthy family in the cultivation world at that. The group entered the North Snow Martial Academy. At this time, there were more than 10,000 people gathered in the martial arts field of the North Snow Martial Academy. According to Gu Fei, this was only because the Bei Shui clan had limited the number of outsiders. If all the members of the Bei Shui clan came, the North Snow Martial Academy would not be able to accommodate so many people. As expected of a wealthy family. There was a VIP area in the audience area, where the Bei Shui clan's patriarch and the representatives of the other clans of the Ice Plain planet were seated. According to the seniority of the clan, Gu Fei was not allowed to come here. However, great-grandmother kept holding Lu Yi's hand and did not want to see her off, so no one dared to stop her. As for Lu Chen, he was personally invited by North Snow Martial Academy to the VIP area. I'll be at the core disciple area. Call me if you need anything. Gu Fei was still worried about Lu Yi and did not forget to remind her before they parted. Before leaving, he also did not forget to say goodbye to Lu Chen. Lu Chen was both angry and amused. This silly boy, Lu Yi was with him, what else could happen? What made Lu Chen a little confused was that Gu Fei was not here, but Qingling was. Wasn't she Gu Fei's little sister? Why did it feel like her status was higher than Gu Fei's? Lu Chen quietly asked Qingling, hey, your brother is going to the disciple area. How can you stay here? Qingling's face was full of pride. Humph, I can. This girl was quite proud. Perhaps there was some reason that she did not want to reveal. Lu Chen did not ask and only shook his head with a smile. The people of the extremely large clans had been waiting here for a long time. When they saw Lu Chen, they could not help but whisper among themselves. This is the VIP that Patriarch Ling Jun mentioned. Which clan is she from? I've never seen her before. I heard that she's Gu Fei's fiancée. Only 2 people came from her clan. Maybe she's from some small clan. Gu Fei is the #1 genius of the Ice Plain planet. Our Ling Feng clan had proposed marriage several times, but he had rejected all of them. I didn't expect him to marry a woman from such a small clan. How can they be so careless about marriage? I really don't know what they're thinking. These people were not from the Bei Shui clan. Although Lu Chen heard them whispering, he pretended not to hear. North Shui Ling Jun announced the start of the elite disciple selection. Immediately, someone pushed a black basalt stone onto the stage. Lu Chen could tell at a glance that this was a testing stone. The first test was the strength of the physical body and spiritual power. The participating disciples stepped onto the stage one by one. The elite disciples at the side announced the results simultaneously. Body tempering stage 7, please enter the preparation area. Body tempering stage 8, please enter the preparation area. Body tempering stage 6, North Shuehu, please take the test again. Body tempering stage 6, please return to the disciple area to watch the competition. Lu Chen watched with great interest. The results were not based on numerical values, but on the level of body tempering stage. Of course, Lu Chen guessed that the two were essentially the same. Lu Chen asked Qing Ling beside him, "Oh right, your level is not in the same system as the Jiutian level, right? What's the concept of body tempering?" Bei Shui and Qing Ling said, "It's actually the same. Our first major realm is body tempering, then qi tempering, and the next major realm is cultivator. After that, it's the same as the Jiutian level." Lu Chen nodded. "So that's how it is." This ice plain planet was indeed a world of cultivators. However, it was different from what Lu Chen imagined. They also needed to rely on the Jiutian. According to the rules, only body tempering stage 7 and above could participate in the elite disciple selection. Most of the disciples were at body tempering stage 7 or 8, but there were some who did not for some reason. At this moment, the crowd gasped. Qi tempering stage 4. It's Bei Shui Han. Another genius from the Bei Shui family. He could be the next Bei Shui Gufei. There's no suspense in this selection. Even if it's 1 in 10,000, he's qualified to become an elite disciple. Finally, the first round of tests ended. Bei Shui Ling Jun was very satisfied with the results. This time, there were 2 qi tempering stage geniuses. To the Bei Shui family, these were geniuses that they could focus on. Next was the competition between the disciples. This was the real condition that could decide whether or not one could become an elite disciple. Level was one thing, but actual combat was more important. Just as the competition was about to start, the entire Bei Shui mountain villa trembled violently. As the number 1 power in the ice plain continent, the Bei Shui mountain villa was built on top of a solid foundation surrounded by a layer of ice that had been frozen for thousands of years. However, not long after, the ice outside the Bei Shui mountain villa cracked open. A huge crack appeared on the ice a dozen meters away. Bei Shui family, I, Bei Shui Guxing, am back. A deep voice came from afar. Today, all of you here will die. Chapter 1154. Along with a loud rumbling sound, people saw a huge white snow ape running towards them. This snow ape was at least 100 meters tall, its whole body was white, it had 4 arms, a pair of eyes, and fangs. And on the shoulder of this snow ape, there was a man in white. The man was very handsome, but compared to Gufei's handsomeness, this man was more gloomy. It's Guxing. He didn't die. North Shui Ling Jun's eyes were wide open, he hurriedly ordered, North Shui clan, go fight the enemy. The people from the other clans were also very surprised. North Shui Guxing. Isn't he North Shui Gufei's brother? It's said that Bei Shui Gufei is a genius that only appears once in 100 years, while Bei Shui Guxing is an idiot that only appears once in 100 years. Furthermore, this person has a cruel personality. When the matter of him killing many of his clansmen was exposed, he was sentenced to death by the Bei Shui clan. His mount is, the long-arm ape. Oh no, not only is this guy not dead, he can even tame the long-arm ape, his strength is unimaginable. At this time, no one cared about the elite disciple selection, everyone rushed out of the North Snow Villa. In the chaos, North Shui Gufei hurriedly found Lu Yi, no matter what happens later, let your brother take you away first. What about you? Lu Yi looked at Gufei anxiously. Gufei took a deep breath, Guxing is my brother, I have to stop him. Let my brother go, Guxing looks very strong. Lu Yi said. Gufei shook his head, Guxing didn't go to Jiutian, his strength comes from the ice plane planet, he can tame an adult long-arm ape, his strength is very terrifying. Big brother is just one-star Emperor Xiao, I can't let him take the risk, you guys go quickly. This. Lu Yi was very confused, even her brother was not a match for Guxing. Then wouldn't Gufei die if he went? Before leaving, Gufei looked at Lu Yi affectionately, I'm sorry, I'm still too weak, I might not be able to protect you, find someone who loves you. Gufei's eyes were red, he turned around and rushed out of the villa's gate, leaving Lu Yi crying her heart out. Lu Chen found his sister. Seeing that she was crying, he hugged her in his arms. Silly girl, why are you crying? Brother. Lu Yi looked at her brother and cried even harder. Gufei might die. Lu Chen sighed. Although he was reluctant to let his sister get married, he was even more reluctant to let her be heartbroken. Alright, I know. Isn't your brother here? I won't let him die. No. Lu Yi cried as she said, Gufei said that Guxing's power came from Ice Plane Star. You're not his match. I can't let you take the risk, as Lu Yi, she must be very conflicted now. She could not bear to part with Gufei, but she could not let her brother die. Lu Chen chuckled. You speak as if he knows my strength. If I tell you that nothing will happen, then nothing will happen. Let's go and have a look. However, we can't just listen to one side of the story. We can also see how the North Shui clan is like, and how Gufei's character is. If they're worth it, I'll naturally do it. Lu Chen wiped away Lu Yi's tears. Silly girl, it's your first time here. Look, your eye makeup is ruined. What brand of makeup do you use? We have so much money at home. Why don't you use a waterproof one? Brother, is this the time to talk about this? Lu Yi was amused by her brother when she was heartbroken. She was really angered to death. Ha, let's go and see that Guxing. Lu Chen saw that Lu Yi's tears had turned into laughter. He smiled and pulled Lu Yi to the main entrance of the villa. Right at that moment, with a loud bang, a hemispherical light screen appeared in the sky above the North Snow Mountain Villa, completely covering the entire North Snow Mountain Villa. Lu Chen frowned slightly. A ceiling formation. They're trying to kill us all. Alright, now we can't leave even if we want to. However, to be able to set up such a huge ceiling formation in such a short time, it meant that Guxing's strength was terrifying. When Lu Chen brought his sister to the main entrance of the villa, he found that the giant ape was still standing there. Its master had already jumped down from its shoulder and was walking towards the North Shui villa. On the other side, the North Shui great ancestor, North Shui Lingjun, North Shui Gufei, North Shui Qinling and the others were staring at that person. Looking at them up close, Beishui Guxing and Beishui Gufei actually looked quite similar. It was just that their temperaments were too different. Guxing, didn't we already sentence you to ice? North Shui Lingjun looked at the person in front of him in shock. The corners of Guxing's mouth curled up slightly. Uncle, speaking of which, I really have to thank you. If you hadn't thrown me into the extreme frost ice cave, how could I have gotten rid of the frost poison in my body, how could I have obtained the extreme frost core, and how could I have tamed the four-armed divine ape? Ice poison. Gufei's eyes widened. Your cultivation speed has always been slow. So it's because of the ice poison? Guxing looked at Gufei coldly. What else could it be? Brother, you're called the number one genius in 100 years, and I'm called the number one idiot in 100 years. You think you're better than me? If it wasn't for the ice poison, you'd be nothing but an ant in front of me. Gufei sighed. Guxing, you should have told me earlier. No matter if you're a genius or an idiot, I've always treated you as my younger brother. Ha. What a good younger brother. Guxing laughed wildly. Of course you think so. Because you've already gotten everything that I'm envious of course you don't care. And your so-called care for me is just a lie. Your care is just out of pity. Don't pretend to be so righteous. I hate you the most. The first person I want to kill is also you. Gu Fei kept shaking his head. It's because I only cared about cultivation and didn't care enough about you. That's why you think so. Gu Xing, it's all my fault that you went down the wrong path. Back then, you killed 23 clansmen. That's why the clan decided to punish you with ice. That's the clan rules. It has nothing to do with the Bei Shui clan. If you want revenge, you can look for me alone. Lu Chen could feel Lu Yi's hand unconsciously tightening. It seemed like she was too worried about Gu Fei. Went down the wrong path. Gu Xing's eyes were full of mockery. Gu Fei, look at you now. You're just a mere emperor. And me? I just didn't go to the Jiutian. If I went to the Jiutian, I could do whatever I wanted in the sixth heaven. You call this going down the wrong path? Brother, do you know why I only came today? Gu Xing's brother sounded awkward. He didn't treat Gu Fei as his brother at all. Today, it seems like the girl you like came to the Bei Shui clan. Gu Xing smiled. I thought about it. For the past few decades, you've taken everything from me. Then this time, I'll let you see with your own eyes how I take away your most precious thing. Gu Fei's eyes burned with anger. You dare. Chapter 1155. Not far away, Lu Yi suddenly realized that something was wrong with her brother. He took a deep breath and slowly exhaled, as if he was suppressing the anger in his heart. If these words were said in front of Lu Chen would probably be angry. However, Lu Chen did not flare up for the time being. He just narrowed his eyes slightly. Looking at it this way, although this kid's background is pitiful, he does have a reason to die. As he spoke, Lu Chen noticed that a thick layer of frost had formed on the seal. It seemed that Gu Xing was determined not to let anyone here have a chance to leave. Although Beishue Gu Fei angrily rebuked Gu Xing, this made him even more excited. Ha ha ha, it seems that you care a lot about your woman. Unfortunately, I am no longer the Beishue Gu Xing of the past. As he spoke, Beishue Gu Xing's gaze fell on Lu Yi. He smiled at Beishue Gu Fei. Watch carefully. See if I dare. Suddenly, Beishue Gu Xing moved. Gu Fei's eyes widened. Gu Xing's speed was too fast. Ordinary movement skills could not keep up. Reverse blood sword intent star form. Big brother, Lu Yi, get out of the way. Gu Fei shouted angrily. The blood in his body flowed in reverse. Gu Fei, don't use reverse blood. Beishue Lingjun shouted, but it was too late to stop Gu Fei. Members of the Beishue family, listen up. You must kill Gu Xing. However, these people were only at the body tempering stage. They were not even real cultivators. How could they stop Beishue Gu Xing? Suddenly, an old man pulled Lu Yi behind him. It was the great ancestor of the Beishue family. Gu Xing, if you want to kill Yi, kill me first. Great ancestor. Lu Yi wanted to say something, but the great ancestor interrupted her. Girl, if you escape from the ice, although you may die at the bottom of the lake, at least you have a chance to live. If you fall into Gu Xing's hands, I'm afraid you'll suffer a fate worse than death. As she spoke, the great ancestor's body exploded with spiritual energy. From the strength of the spiritual energy, she was actually quite strong. The great ancestor was very old, which meant that she had reached a very high level. However, at the same time, her situation should be the same as Yi Tian's a sea of clouds. There was no hope for her to break through. Boom! Even Lu Chen hadn't expected that Solitary Flying, who was only at the Emperor level, would actually catch up to Solitary Star. The two of them instantly exchanged blows. After one or two moves, Gu Fei was directly sent flying by Gu Xing's palm. He smashed into the ice surface like a cannonball. Gu Xing stopped and looked at Gu Fei, who couldn't get up from the ground. He snorted, "You even used the reverse blood and don't want your life anymore. It seems that you really have deep feelings for this woman. Don't worry, I won't let you die so quickly. After all, I want you to see with your own eyes what it feels like to lose a loved one." "Gu Xing, you." Gu Fei spat out a mouthful of black blood, his face pale. Who would have thought that Lone Star's strength would actually increase so terrifyingly in the extreme cold ice cave? Even in the reverse blood state, the difference between them was too great. "Stop it. Stop. Ha ha ha, beg me. If you beg me, perhaps I will agree." Lu Yi could not stand it anymore. She broke free from Lu Chen's hand and rushed to Gu Fei. She cried as she helped Gu Fei up. "Are you okay? No matter how strong he is, I'll face it with you." Gu Fei looked at Lu Yi with heartache and shook his head. "He's too strong, let your brother take you away. Perhaps he has a way to protect you from the ice." I'm sorry, no, you didn't let me down." Lu Yi's tears fell like rain. "I don't regret meeting you. Even if I die, I want to die with you. Ha 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 ha, what a pair of lovebirds. I'm almost touched." Gu Xing laughed. "This must be my sister-in-law. I'm sorry, I'm going to kill you soon." Lu Yi pulled out her sword and stood in front of Gu Fei. She glared at Gu Xing, "I'm not afraid of you. Come at me if you have the guts. You have quite a temper." "Gu Fei, what's wrong? You need a woman to protect you now. Unfortunately, none of you can leave." Gu Xing's eyes were filled with killing intent. North Snow Great Ancestor and North Snow Ling Jun saw this and knew that things were not going well. The two of them flashed towards Lu Yi. "Go. A bunch of old farts. You think you can stop me?" Gu Xing was like a shooting star as he shot towards Lu Yi. "Die. Ice Soul, Extreme Frost Ice Heart." This move caused the water vapor in the air to freeze. Gu Xing's palm was covered in sparkling frost. Gu Fei's eyes were about to split open. Great Ancestor and Uncle were too late. He exploded with all his strength and dragged Lu Yi behind him. Inverse Blood Sword Intent, Return of 10,000 Swords. At this moment, people suddenly heard another voice. All right, I admit. You brat, you've passed my test. Sigh. Treat my sister well in the future. If I find out that you dare to bully her, I'll teach you a lesson." There was a loud bang. Where Gu Fei was originally standing, the 10,000-year-old ice layer collapsed. The frozen ground was directly blasted into a huge pit that was dozens of meters wide. However, people realized that North Snow Gu Fei and Lu Yi were not there. They were now dozens of meters away from the deep pit. The inverse blood sword intent seemed to have deviated because of Gu Fei's position. It directly slashed past Gu Xing's side and hit the seal. There was now a white-haired man beside Gu Fei and Lu Yi. Who is that person? He's so fast. Clan leader Ling Feng, who was second only to North Snow, looked at the white-haired man in disbelief. He's even faster than North Snow Great Ancestor. Gu Fei looked at Lu Chen and panted heavily. Big brother, didn't I ask you to take Lu Yi away? Gu Xing's strength is too terrifying. Although you're very strong, you're still just one-star Emperor Xiu. Lu Chen smiled. You're wrong. I'm one-star Fields Theo the Great. This. Gu Fei couldn't react for a moment. Was there a difference? On the other hand, North Snow Qingling blushed when she saw Lu Chen. Big brother finally made his move. Why does Big brother look different from before? Right now, he's even better looking than Big brother Gu Fei. Qingling, is that Big brother the person beside you just now? A girl around Qingling's age asked. Yes, it's him. Lu Yi's brother is so strong. To be able to escape from Gu Xing's technique, that's too terrifying. The girl said in shock. Such a person can't be nameless on ice field. Qingling said. Zifan, who do you admire the most in Zhejian? Ah. The girl didn't know why Qingling would suddenly ask this question. Moreover, as her best friend, shouldn't Qingling know? Solipsistic. Why? Qingling smiled. Everyone says that he's crazy. However, they don't know that he doesn't want to be remembered by the world. That's why he's called nameless. The person you're looking at now is your idol. Qingling turned to look at Zifan. Zifan's eyes widened as he looked at the white-haired man. White hair, fox ears. If this wasn't the legendary man in Zhejian, who else could it be? Chapter 1156. North Snow Great Ancestor and North Snow Ling Jun arrived soon after. Lu Qin said to the two of them, "Take Gu Fei and Lu Yi away from here. Gu Fei's internal injuries are serious and he needs treatment as soon as possible. I didn't expect him to be able to stop Gu Xing. I was too careless. Brother Du Kuang, this is our North Snow family's matter. Ling Jun is ashamed to have troubled you." Lu Qin smiled. "We're going to be a family soon. What's the point of saying this? Besides, this Gu Xing doesn't plan on letting us go." Lu Qin looked at Lu Yi. "Just in time. I, Lu Qin, am marrying my sister. At the very least, I need to establish a reputation in your ice plateau planet and let them know that she's my, Lu Qin's, sister." Gu Fei almost lost his temper. Hearing Lu Qin's words, he opened his eyes. "Big brother, you said you," Lu Qin smiled. "Gu Fei, you're willing to give up your life for Lu Yi. What reason do I have to reject this marriage?" With that, Lu Qin shook his head. "That's right. Your strength is worrying. When I have time, I'll have to teach you a few moves." Everyone around them was confused when they heard this. This white-haired man was criticizing their ice plateau planet's #1 expert like that. He was directly saying that Gu Fei was weak. And the North Snow family head and great ancestor were especially happy to hear that. Just who was this guy? "Big brother, you have to be careful. Gu Xing's strength is too terrifying," Gu Fei said. "You're just one-star Emperor Xiu. You can't be careless. If you can't fuse your soul and body, your strength will be greatly reduced." Lu Qin shook his head. "I already said that I, Theo the Great, am different from others. Forget it, it's hard to explain it to you. Just rest up and leave this to me." Ling Jun and Great Ancestor were about to leave with Gu Fei and Lu Yi when Lu Qin suddenly asked, "There's one more thing. Brother Du Kuang, please speak." Ling Jun replied. "I won't leave this Gu Xing alive." Ling Jun glanced at Gu Xing. Although he was from the North Snow clan and his past was indeed pitiful, the North Snow clan had never mistreated him. Yet, he killed his fellow clan members and today, he even wanted to exterminate the North Snow clan. Sai, the Bei Shui family is equal to everyone in the family. Regardless of whether you're a direct descendant or a collateral descendant, you'll be punished the same way. Not to mention that he's already been sentenced to death. Lu Qin nodded. That would be best. Ling Jun led Gu Fei and the others away from the battlefield. At this moment, only Lu Qin and Gu Xing remained. Gu Xing narrowed his eyes slightly. With his strength, massacring the entire northern snow village would be a piece of cake. However, this person had managed to dodge his attack with ease. "Who are you?" Lu Qin looked at Gu Xing indifferently. "Speaking of which, after Yi and Gu Fei get married, you should also call me brother-in-law. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance to wait until then." Lu Qin couldn't help but sneer. Gu Xing's eyes narrowed. "You're really arrogant. Everyone here is going to die anyway. One more person is just one more death. I'm already at the peak of the 9th star human king realm. It's just that I didn't go to the Jotian. If I did, I'd be the strongest in the 6th heaven. You dare to be arrogant in front of me? Watch how I'll torture you to death. As soon as these words came out, everyone present couldn't help but gasp. Peak of the 9th star human king realm. My God, Gu Xing has actually reached the pinnacle of mortals. What kind of fortuitous encounter did he have in the extreme cold ice cave for him to have such a terrifying improvement in just a few years? This is a great fortuitous encounter. Even in the Jotian, it's something unimaginable. I didn't expect a villain like him to obtain it. Not good, we all underestimated Gu Xing's strength. Brother Gu Kuang is in danger. Ling Jun of the North Snow clan said anxiously. However, great-grandmother sighed, it's too late to say anything now. Although we don't want to implicate little friend Gu Kuang, Gu Xing doesn't intend to let anyone here go. Right now, only Lone Tyrant can fight against Lone Star. Lu Yi was worried about Gu Fei's injuries and her brother's battle. She only felt that the world was spinning. Bei Shui Qingling pulled Lu Yi's hand, brother Gu Fei's life won't be in danger. Now, all of our hopes of survival are on Brother Nameless. Lu Chen muttered, why are all the opponents we've met recently saying that they're the strongest in the 6th heaven? Shouldn't there only be one strongest? Since you're the strongest in the 6th heaven, then bring it on. After saying this, Lu Chen looked at Gu Xing calmly. Gu Xing snorted coldly, why use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken? Arm! The huge snow ape, who was waiting to be dispatched, roared angrily. Its 4 thick arms hammered its chest, showing off its strength. This was the real world, but Lu Chen was already used to fighting with his true body. Not only that, but he also had many things that he could use without needing to extract them. Although he couldn't use the infinite sword of demons and gods and demons' lotus heart, the emptiness of gods and demons' arm and the heavenly eyes of demons and gods and demons were parts that had fused with his body. They were directly part of his body and didn't need to be extracted at all. Also, there were his battle pets. They already had their original bodies. Lu Chen had only brought them from the Jotian to the ice plain planet. After thinking about it, Lu Chen summoned Little Furball, I'll leave that monkey to you. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Little Furball seemed to be very excited. It was interested in the surrounding environment and was very happy that it had an opponent. It even swallowed a mouthful of saliva when it agreed to the task. After jumping down from Lu Chen's hand, the little furball quickly ran towards the huge Tombi divine ape. As it ran, its body enlarged. When it reached the front of the Tombi divine ape, it was already as big as the Tombi divine ape. Zifan opened his eyes wide and said in horror, what is that? I thought it was just a cute pet mouse. How did it become so big all of a sudden? That's Brother Nameless' battle pet, the swallowing god rat. Qing Ling exclaimed. The swallowing god rat? I've never seen such a battle pet in the illustrated handbook. There's only one swallowing god rat and it's not recorded in the illustrated handbook of Jotian battle pets. Little Furball didn't care about the long-arm ape. It pounced on the ape and bit it. The long-arm ape didn't expect the large rat to be so fierce and fast. Its shoulder was bitten by Little Furball. But the long-arm ape wasn't weak either. Its wound was quickly covered by a layer of ice. Little Furball didn't bite it. Seeing that the long-arm ape was waving its 4 arms, Little Furball quickly shrank and crawled to the long-arm ape's back. Then, it enlarged and bit the long-arm ape again. While the long-arm ape was strong, it wasn't as agile as Little Furball. The long-arm ape was already furious after being bitten twice, but it couldn't do anything to Little Furball for the time being. In the meantime, Lone Star had dashed toward Lu Chen. You've taken out a battle pet. But you can't even be a god. I'll kill you and then I'll slaughter Beishue. Lu Chen squinted at Lone Star. He wouldn't let Lu Yi marry him if he didn't kill Lone Star. You're already a dead man from the moment you tried to kill Lu Yi. Lu Chen said coldly. Cut the crap. Take this. Ice spirit, piercing coldness. A cold wind sprang up like sharp blades. Countless icicles surged toward Lone Star's fist. His fist was covered by a thick layer of ice and expanded 100 times. That horrifying punch was enough to break the ice of the ice plateau planet that had been frozen for 10,000 years. Lu Chen snorted. His left hand quickly turned into a demon until it was almost as big as his body. Flames appeared on his arm. That punch was infused with the power of the underworld fire. Spirit manipulation. Void attack. Earth fire shatters the void. Lu Chen shouted. His void arm punched at that horrifying ice fist. Chapter 1157. At the center of the collision of ice and fire, steam and spiritual chi burst out at the same time. The ice under their feet shattered instantly, and the violent spiritual chi sent all the onlookers flying backward. Many of them hit the wall directly and spat out blood. This is just the aftermath of the spiritual chi. How could it be so horrible? Oh, no. We can't hold it anymore. Is this the strength of a 9-star human king? It's horrible. Lord Lingjun of North Snow, Ancestor Tai, and the experts of other families, such as Lingfeng and Chigu, activated their shields at the same time. However, their protective shields were unable to withstand such a powerful spiritual true chi and were directly shattered. In this battle, Gu Xing and Lu Chen hadn't finished yet, but all the onlookers had been injured. Now, they finally understood one thing. A battle at the peak of the 9-star human king realm was not something that everyone could watch. The two sides were still in a stalemate. Seeing that the onlookers couldn't resist the aftermath of the spiritual chi, Lu Chen summoned the Suboriginator. Suboriginator. Protect Lu Yi and the others. A white tiger jumped to the onlookers and stood in front of them. The Suboriginator had the ability to absorb spiritual chi temporarily, so it could protect the onlookers. At the same time, a few seconds after their fists collided, the ice on Gu Xing's right arm suddenly shattered. Without the protection of the ice, Gu Xing's physical body faced the great virtual arm, and the result was predictable. His right fist was shattered immediately, and the bones of his forearm pierced through the skin from his elbow. His whole arm was destroyed. The earth fire quickly entangled Gu Xing, and his right arm was devoured by the fire. At the same time, Gu Xing flew backward and hit the huge stone pillar in front of the North Snow Mountain, breaking it and collapsing it. Gu Xing had no time to vomit blood. Seeing the fire still spreading up his arm, he gritted his teeth, turned his left hand into an ice knife, and cut off his right arm. After sealing the wound with ice, Gu Xing raised his head and looked at Lu Chen, his eyes full of horror. How could you be so powerful? Impossible. You can't have passed the tribulation. What level are you at? Lu Chen walked slowly toward him. As he walked, he took out his badge and put it on. Seeing the words Emperor Xiu of Xingye, Gu Xing was dumbfounded. He was defeated by 1-star Emperor Xiu. It should be noted that the cultivators on the Ice Plain planet were similar to the cultivators on the Jiutian planet. Logically speaking, the Theo the Great of the Jiutian planet should be the same as the Theo the Great of the Ice Plain planet. However, this guy's strength had been greatly reduced, yet he was still able to defeat him so easily. Are all Jiutian experts this strong? Gu Xing's eyes widened. Lu Chen pursed his lips. Something like that. Gu Xing suddenly felt as if his world was collapsing. He was a peak 9-star human king, yet he had been instantly defeated by someone who was 2 realms higher than him. The key point was that Jiutian was filled with such strong people. Lu Chen's casual words not only shocked Gu Xing, but also Gu Fei and the others. It can't be, is what Big Brother said true? If it's true, then is the sixth heaven still a place for people to stay? Gu Fei endured his injuries and looked at Lu Yi in horror. Lu Yi finally heaved a sigh of relief. Hearing Gu Fei's question, she couldn't help but laugh. Are you stupid? Can you believe my brother's words? What he thinks is different from what we think. Gu Fei thought about it. That seemed to be the case. Lu Chen felt that Gu Xing was weak, but could they feel that Gu Xing was weak? Thinking of this, Gu Fei finally heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was fake. Otherwise, it would have been a huge blow. Lu Chen looked at Gu Xing coldly. I don't care what your feud with the Beishue family is, but since you dared to have designs on Lu Yi, you must die. Gu Xing glanced at the battle between Tong Bai and the furball. Tong Bai's body was covered in ice, and under the ice, there were ghastly wounds. It looked like Tong Bai was seriously injured. On the other side, the large rat was getting more and more ferocious. Its eyes were filled with mockery as it gnawed on Tong Bai Godly Ape's arm. Your battle pet is also so strong. Lu Chen looked at the furball and smiled. The little guy was not fighting properly again. Gu Xing suddenly heaved a sigh. Your sister really has a good brother. You also have a good brother, but you don't know how to cherish him. Lu Chen said, Gu Fei has an upright personality and is also responsible. In the distance, Gu Fei widened his eyes and pulled Lu Yi. Did you hear what my brother said? He praised me. I heard it. Lu Yi was speechless. It was rare to see Gu Fei so happy, and the reason was because her brother praised him. Didn't my brother say that you passed his test? I know. I just haven't heard your brother praise me like that. Gu Fei was so excited that he even forgot about his own injuries. He was jumping up and down. Sigh, men. Lu Yi shook her head and sighed. Everyone felt that the battle was coming to an end, including Lu Chen. Lu Chen activated the void arm and was about to end Gu Xing's life. However, right at that moment, Gu Xing burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, it's easy for you to say that. They all seem to be nice to me, but deep down, they all despise me. Those people I killed, they all deserve to die. I wish I could kill all the people of the Beishue family. I was unlucky enough to run into you. You stopped me from killing the Beishue family. I will make you pay. I will let you have a taste of your own medicine. Lu Chen opened his eyes wide. You are about to die, but you still don't know how to repent. I did nothing wrong. Why should I repent? Gu Xing became more and more crazy and irritable. There was a glint of cruelty in his eyes. Remember, I will not die in your hands. I will make all of you become like me. Extreme cold poison explosion. Gu Xing shouted and suddenly activated a violent explosion of spiritual energy. Lu Chen originally thought that Gu Xing had activated the explosion of his spiritual core. However, in terms of the intensity of the explosion, it was far from the explosion of a spiritual core. At that moment, Lu Chen was too close to Gu Xing. Lu Chen could not dodge in time. Moreover, he could not dodge as Lu Yi was still in the crowd. Lu Chen quickly raised the void arm to block and activated an area defense. Void guard. Brother. Lu Yi anxiously looked at Lu Chen. He had blocked all the attacks alone. When the spiritual explosion dissipated, Lu Yi anxiously looked at the battlefield. In the battlefield, snow filled the sky. The white-haired man was still standing in the same spot. However, Gu Xing had disappeared in front of him, leaving only a small amount of flesh on the ground. Seeing that her brother was fine, Lu Yi heaved a sigh of relief. Lu Chen put down the void arm and narrowed his eyes slightly. The extreme cold poison explosion was powerful, but its power was not as strong as expected. It was not even as strong as Gu Xing's bone-piercing cold. The void arm blocked the spiritual explosion perfectly. Lu Chen heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Gu Xing's remains. On the other hand, Tong Bai dragged its severely wounded body and ran away after seeing its master explode. After all, this was the real world. Battle pets could run away, furball, don't chase it. Lu Chen had just finished his words when he suddenly felt a chill all over his body. Lu Chen frowned. Given his physical strength, he was not afraid of the cold. Why would he feel cold? A moment later, Lu Chen began to shiver and his lips turned purple. At the same time, he was forced to withdraw from the symbiotic state. He could not even mobilize his spiritual energy to protect himself from the cold. What? Lu Chen opened his eyes wide. Then, he suddenly remembered what Gu Xing said before his death. Extreme cold poison. He implanted the extreme cold poison into my body. At this thought, Lu Chen's eyelids twitched. Soon, he collapsed to the ground. Chapter 1158. When Lu Chen woke up, he found himself lying on a bed. There were 5 or 6 stoves beside the bed, but there were still several blankets covering his body. There were a few people sitting around him with anxious expressions. Lu Yi, great ancestor of northern snow, Ling Jun, Qing Ling, and Gu Fei. Lu Chen sat up, but he still felt a chill. Seeing Lu Chen get up, the others hurriedly surrounded him. Brother Du Kuang, you're awake. How do you feel now? Ling Jun looked at Lu Chen with concern. Lu Yi wanted to hold Lu Chen's hand, but when her palm touched it, her hand was almost frostbitten. It was only a touch, but it was already so cold. Thinking of her brother in such a state, Lu Yi's eyes turned red. Brother, how are you? Lu Yi's eyes became wet again. Lu Chen smiled at his sister, why are you crying? I'm not dead, it's just, a little cold. The great-grandmother frowned. Before Lone Star died, he released the extreme cold poison. Originally, all of us would have suffered a calamity, but fortunately, little friend Lone Kuang blocked the cold explosion. However, this also meant that you alone absorbed all the cold poison. The poison explosion released all the cold poison in Gu Xing's body at once. Fortunately, little friend Du Kuang's body was strong, otherwise, the cold poison would have broken out on the spot and he would have been powerless. Lu Chen frowned, could it be that Gu Xing was like this before? Ling Jun shook his head, Gu Xing released the cold poison slowly, and the intensity was not even 1/10,000th of what little friend Du Kuang is experiencing now. I didn't expect that guy to poison others before he died. Lu Chen sighed. He had already tried before, but the biggest problem now was that he couldn't use spirit energy. Without the protection of spirit energy, no matter how strong his body was, he was just a sturdy sandbag. Big brother, I'm sorry. Gu Fei lowered his head and said in a choked voice, I wanted you to come to Ice Plateau Star to play, but I caused you to be poisoned. I. Looking at Gu Fei's self-blame, Lu Chen smiled, what about you? This has nothing to do with you. Lu Chen took a deep breath and sat up. Lu Yi hurriedly covered him with a blanket. Everyone, you don't have to blame yourselves. Even though I've been poisoned by the cold poison, since Gu Xing can cure it, it's not like I can't. Senior Ling Jun previously, you all dropped Gu Xing into the extreme frost ice cavern. He should have controlled the frost poison there, right? Lu Chen looked at Ling Jun. Ling Jun seemed to have something he couldn't say, his brows tightly knitted together. Brother Du Kuang, it was precisely because we wanted to execute him that we sent him into the ice cave. At that time, his cold poison was less than 1/10,000th of yours, so he almost froze to death when he entered the ice cave. With your current condition, I'm afraid you won't be able to enter the ice cave. That's right, big brother. In the past, Gu Xing was also afraid of the cold, but not as extreme as you. Previously, when you were unconscious, you kept complaining that it was cold. If not for the fact that I was afraid that you would dehydrate, I would have added at least 10 more stoves here. If you go to the ice cave, it's too dangerous. Gu Fei also said. Lu Chen's brows were tightly knitted together. After thinking for a moment, he said, right now, I can't use my spirit energy. If I don't get rid of the cold poison, I'll be a cripple. Rather than being a cripple, I'd rather take a gamble. I don't believe that if Guxing can survive, I can't. Right now, the extreme frost ice cavern was the only way for Lu Chen to get rid of the cold poison. He had to take a gamble. 2 days later, Lu Chen wrapped himself in 3 sets of ferret coats and followed the North Snow family's team to the depths of the North Snow Valley. Even though Lu Chen had wrapped himself up like a fur ball, he was still shivering from the cold. This wasn't caused by the low temperature outside, but more importantly, the cold inside his body. Halfway through, Lu Chen took off one of his coats. Gu Fei hurried over. Big brother, why did you take off your coat? Lu Chen's face was already purple from the cold. We're about to enter the ice cave. I can't wear so much, right? I need to get used to it first. Gu Fei wanted to say something, but felt that his big brother was right. As they approached the extreme frost ice cavern, Lu Chen had already taken off all 3 coats. In front of them, there was a huge deep well, which was the extreme frost ice cavern. The team also stopped here. Little friend Lu Chen, are you sure you want to go down? Great-grandmother looked at Lu Chen with worry. Lu Chen nodded, I have to go. Lu Yi had been following Lu Chen all this time. Big brother, I'll go with you. Lu Chen smiled, silly girl, you don't have the cold poison. By the way, I've already agreed to your marriage with Gu Fei. Lu Yi's eyes were suddenly covered with a layer of ice. She choked and said, Big brother, why are you saying this? If you don't come back, I won't marry. Lu Chen couldn't argue with his sister, so he could only nod. He turned around and walked to the edge of the deep well by himself. Ling Jun walked to Lu Chen's side. This is where the big families punish those who have committed the most heinous crimes. Therefore, there is an ice platform built around it. There are also wooden paddles on the side to stir the ice. There are also people who will break the ice and stir the water regularly to prevent the water from freezing. Lu Chen took a deep breath. Senior Ling Jun, if I don't come back, I'll have to ask Senior to worry about Lu Yi. Brother Du Quan. Ling Jun's eyes were slightly red. Whether you come back or not, the North Shui family will definitely not mistreat Yi. If Gu Fei dares to betray her, I'll be the first to break his legs. Lu Chen finally relaxed and looked into the deep well. There was already a thin layer of ice on the surface of the water. Ling Jun immediately had people use wooden paddles to break open the ice. A cold wind blew, and Lu Chen couldn't help but shiver. It was really cold. If he didn't have the cold poison, he wouldn't have jumped into the icy water. The more he thought about it, the more hesitant he became. Lu Chen didn't think about anything and directly jumped into the ice. Brother Du Quan. Brother. Someone called him from behind, but Lu Chen had already jumped into the ice cave. The temperature of the lake water in the ice cave was extremely low. A bone-piercing chill hit him, and Lu Chen felt that he was going to freeze to death in this place. After only 1 or 2 seconds, Lu Chen already felt that his hands and feet were stiff. He couldn't paddle at all, and his body couldn't help but sink. Damn it, my body is already frozen. The temperature here is too low. Lu Chen's consciousness began to blur. Using his last bit of consciousness, Lu Chen called out the seed originator. The little furball also needed to breathe underwater. Without the help of the water avoidance pearl, it might not be able to hold on for long. However, the seed originator was different. It was an amalgamation of spiritual energy and didn't need to breathe. After the seed originator appeared, it immediately knew that its master was in an extremely dangerous situation. However, it also knew that its master couldn't go up now and had to go deeper into the ice cave. A ball of soft spiritual energy turned into a bubble and wrapped around Lu Chen. Under the bubble, Lu Chen was finally able to breathe, and the surrounding extremely cold lake water was also isolated from him. However, the cold poison in his body had been completely activated in this ice cave, and he was still in a very dangerous situation. Seed Originator, go down. The Seed Originator immediately understood Lu Chen's meaning and led the bubble all the way to the bottom of the ice cave. It was unknown how deep this ice cave was. After a few hours, the Seed Originator was still diving. Lu Chen's body had already turned purple from the cold. He curled up into a ball and lost consciousness. Seeing that its master was in danger, the Seed Originator released its spiritual energy and frantically dived down. It was now its master's only hope to survive. Chapter 1159. Little Originator looked back at Lu Chen. Boss was dying, but he just told it to dive down, but didn't tell it what to look for. Of course, even Lu Chen himself didn't know what to look for, so Lone Star wouldn't tell him. Right at this moment, Xiao Yuan suddenly stopped. It seemed to have reached the bottom of the lake. Suddenly, a red light came out of nowhere. Through the red light, Sub-Originator saw the scene at the bottom of the lake. There were hundreds of corpses here. Nobody knew how long they had been in the water, but they didn't rot at all. Their limbs were stiff, sinking in the mud. Su Yuan didn't have time to think, and swam quickly toward the light. It was the same with the dark bottom of the lake. The light seemed to be there, but it took Su Yuan more than 2 hours to reach it. When it finally reached the light, Su Yuan noticed that there was a deep hole in the riverbed, with a diameter of at least 1,000 meters. The water around the deep hole was boiling and rushing upward. An arc-shaped water curtain was formed on the surface of the deep hole. Above the water curtain, water was rising upward. Below the water curtain, there was another space, where no lake water seemed to enter. In the violent turbulence, Originator, who was already a bit tired, had to keep himself from being swept away and at the same time, ensure the safety of his boss. Gradually, he found it difficult to hold on. At this moment, Lu Chen felt better, maybe because the water temperature increased, and he finally opened his eyes slowly. As soon as he opened his eyes, Lu Chen saw the weird deep hole under them. Su Yuan was trying hard to maintain balance in the turbulence, but it couldn't get close to the arc-shaped water curtain. Lu Chen frowned. That deep hole might be the key to detoxifying the cold poison. However, Lu Chen couldn't use any of his spiritual power, so he couldn't help Su Yuan. At this moment, Lu Chen found that Rhubarb was a little restless. Rhubarb wants to come out. Rhubarb, the pressure here is too high. You may not be able to bear it. Lu Chen communicated with Rhubarb. But Rhubarb still wanted to come out. Lu Chen thought for a while and asked Su Yuan to temporarily give up on entering the deep pit. Then, he asked Su Yuan to strengthen the defensive ability of the spirit power bubble before releasing Rhubarb. Rhubarb barked in one direction as soon as it came out of the bubble. Little Originator immediately understood and led the bubble in that direction. After swimming for a while, Originator found a huge rock at the bottom of the sea. It seemed that Rhubarb wanted it to go from there. Translator, WQL Editor, Alim. The tacit understanding between Rhubarb and Rhubarb was needless to say. Translator, Transin Editor, Transin 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 Translator, Transin Editor, Transin. Upon seeing the cave, the Originator immediately dived in. After going through the cave for a while, they saw a water curtain cave in front of them. This side was full of cold lake water, while the other side was an independent space, isolated from the lake water. This time, it didn't take much effort for Su Yuan to bring Lu Chen and Rhubarb in. Finally, they left the bottom of the lake, and Su Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. It was very hot in the cave, but Lu Chen felt indescribably comfortable. He had finally recovered his strength. However, Rhubarb and Su Yuan didn't seem to like it here. Rhubarb was so hot that it stuck out its tongue. Su Yuan seemed to be exhausted. Lu Chen hurriedly called them back. It's so comfortable here. Lu Chen felt the temperature here. He hadn't felt so comfortable in a long time. After recovering, Lu Chen even felt that he could use part of his spiritual power. This entrance must have been hidden by Lone Star. That's why we didn't find it at first. Lu Chen said, but I don't know if this place is connected to the abyss at the bottom of the lake. Let's go inside and see. There was a damaged wall in front of them. They didn't know if it was done by Lone Star. The strange thing was that after passing through the ruins of the wall, Lu Chen clearly felt that the temperature inside had doubled. It's very difficult for ordinary people to survive in such a high temperature. Lu Chen took a deep breath and felt very comfortable. Moving forward, there was another damaged wall. After passing this wall, the surrounding temperature rose again. After passing through 3 layers of damaged walls, the temperature here was extremely high. Moreover, Lu Chen found that the ground here was much smoother than before, and there were some fish bones around. Lu Chen frowned slightly. Did Lone Star cultivate here for several years? Not only did he control the cold poison, but he also improved his strength greatly. Lu Chen also sat cross-legged here. Previously, Lu Chen couldn't use the spiritual power in his spiritual core. But now, he could use it at will. Let's check the situation of the cold poison first. Lu Chen entered the state of selflessness and looked at his spiritual power. It turned out that the cold poison had already integrated into his spiritual core. Previously, he couldn't use his spiritual power because his spiritual core was frozen by the cold poison. But now, under the high temperature, the cold poison was merging with his spiritual core. If he could cultivate his mental cultivation method now, he should pay attention to his spiritual core to absorb the cold poison better. Unfortunately, Lu Chen didn't have a good cultivation method now. My mixed Yuan mental cultivation method increases the spiritual power of my fighting spirit. This is a bit troublesome. It seems that I can only wait for the spiritual core to absorb the cold poison on its own. Since it was absorbing the cold poison on its own, Lu Chen stood up and looked around. And, there's another wall in front. Is it the same as the one that was destroyed before? Lu Chen quickly noticed that the stone wall in front of him was different. He knocked on it with his hand and it sounded hollow. Gu Xing had his mental cultivation method, but Lu Chen could only let his spiritual core absorb the cold poison on its own. The efficiency was too low. However, Lu Chen's cold poison was stronger than Gu Xing's, and his fire affinity was far from Gu Xing's. This meant that he could go deeper. Thinking of this, Lu Chen directly smashed the wall in front of him with a punch. A biting cold heat wave hit him in the face. Lu Chen didn't feel any discomfort. Instead, he felt refreshed all over. It seems that this is a cultivation room. The deeper I go, the higher the temperature. I don't know how many levels there are. Anyway, I still feel a little cold. I can continue to go deeper. Thinking of this, Lu Chen's goal this time was to find the stone wall. 5th level, 6th level, 7th level. When he reached the 7th level, Lu Chen finally felt that long-lost feeling. He started to feel hot. However, he just felt hot, but it was still far from being unbearable. The spiritual core seems to be absorbing the cold poison faster. I feel that my body's spiritual power seems to have improved a lot. Lu Chen felt for a while. This was the real world, and the system didn't give him an accurate value. He could only feel it by himself. Fortunately, although Lu Chen didn't know how much his spiritual power had improved, the absorption and improvement of both the cold poison and his spiritual power were much faster than before. Oh, not bad. Lu Chen was suddenly overjoyed. Let's go deeper. 8th level, 9th level. When he reached the 9th level, Lu Chen heard the sound of water flowing. He looked up and found that it was at the bottom of the huge pit that Originator had tried to enter before. It turned out that the strange pit was at the end of the cave. Rhubarb really found a shortcut. Chapter 1160. Rhubarb was still strong. Without it, Lu Chen and Originator would have been in danger. It was not hard to imagine that with Lone Star's strength at that time, it was impossible for him to enter this place, but it was possible for him to enter the cave at the bottom of the lake. Lu Chen looked around and found that the so-called red light was emitted from the center of the circular pit. There seemed to be something else there. Lu Chen approached it cautiously. To Lu Chen, the surrounding temperature was barely bearable. One must know that this was a severe extreme cold poison, coupled with Lu Chen's tens of thousands of fire affinity, which was barely bearable. Ordinary people couldn't even get close to this place. No wonder Lone Star stopped at the 4th floor. There's a talisman array on the ground. Lu Chen noticed the runes on the ground, and the center of the array was right in the center. Ha! There's a person sitting there. Lu Chen was a little surprised. He looked carefully and found that there was indeed a person sitting there, but there was only a skeleton left. There was a red bead floating 3 feet above the skeleton's head. The surrounding temperature and red halo seemed to be emitted by that bead. What's that? Lu Chen was a little surprised. But before he figured it out, Lu Chen didn't dare to touch it with his hands. There were 3 things in front of the skeleton. One was oddly shaped, like a pair of glasses. The other was a badge. Lu Chen recognized it at first glance as a rank badge in Jyotian. There were a few words written on the badge, but they were not in Jyotian. Lu Chen didn't have the translation function, and he didn't know the language of the Ice Plateau Star. There was a book next to the badge. Lu Chen picked it up and checked it. There was a lot of content written on it, and some pictures of people practicing. But it was still in the language of the Ice Plateau Star. Lu Chen didn't dare to jump to conclusions. Finally, Lu Chen's eyes fell on the pair of glasses. Normally, at least the book wouldn't be able to hold in such a high temperature. But the book is still intact. It seems that he left it there on purpose. Since it was purposely left behind, then, those glasses can't be a translation device, right? Thinking of this, Lu Chen picked up his glasses and looked at it again. Sure enough, this was a translation tool from Jyotian. The owner of Withered Bones had actually brought it out. After putting on his glasses, Lu Chen was no longer obstructed from looking at these things. It's actually a 9-star king. Lu Chen looked at the badge in surprise. He had seen many 9-star kings, but this was the Ice Plain planet. Other than Lone Star, the others were far from reaching the human king realm. Then, he looked at the books again. The opening was a line of handwritten words left behind by that person. I was originally a cultivator of the 6th heaven of Jyotian. I was an itinerant immortal, true fire mysterious ice. However, I was unlucky and encountered a level 7 heavenly tribulation. Although I used the tribulation transcendence pill, I barely managed to survive and became an itinerant immortal. He's actually an individual immortal. Lu Chen was shocked. His level was even higher than what he had guessed. Perhaps when one reached the realm of immortal, the badge no longer showed the level. That was why it stopped at the 9-star king realm. Lu Chen continued reading. However, because the inner demons were too strong, although I was still alive, my body was seriously injured and I returned to the Ice Plain planet to await my death. Those who do not enter the immortal path are ultimately mortal. Itinerant immortals are ultimately not true immortals. They only have a glimpse of the heavenly secrets, yet they dare to call themselves half-immortals. They are really deceiving themselves and others. In the end, they can't escape the 6 realms of samsara. In my life as an immortal, I abandoned my family and loved ones. Now, I'm only waiting for my death here. Everyone seeks immortality, but I don't know how many died without a corpse or how many abandoned their 7 emotions and 6 desires. It doesn't matter if you're all-powerful or famous. In the end, if you don't become a true immortal, you're just a pile of bones in the wilderness. Successor, no matter who you are, if you can enter the core of the 9 refinements true fire array, it means that you have extraordinary strength. I leave this technique and this 9 refinements ice fire pearl as a gift to you. It's also proof that the true fire mysterious ice pearl has been in this Jyotian. The 9 refinements ice fire pearl is an auxiliary dharma treasure for fire and ice elements. It can be switched between states. During cultivation, this pearl can be used to assist you. You can choose different attributes according to your needs. It can increase your affinity to fire or ice elements while increasing your spiritual power. The true fire mysterious ice sword technique is the strongest technique that made me famous. It's at the immortal technique level. When your affinity to fire and ice reaches 20,000, you can learn the first level, polar ice flame explosion. It's terrifying and can split mountains and seas. Use it with caution. Lu Chen was shocked. This was actually an immortal technique. The only immortal technique he had seen so far was the dark corrosion Jyotian used by the dark corrosion. Its power was terrifying. If he didn't know the second level of spirit chi refinement, his current skills wouldn't be able to compete with it. And this true fire mysterious ice sword technique was actually an immortal technique level sword technique. Damn, the affinity to the ice element also needs 20,000. Lu Chen shook his head. His affinity to the fire element had just reached 100 million. He was still far from this requirement. But fortunately, this technique was an item that had already been manifested. As long as Lu Chen brought it to the Jyotian, he would be able to learn it quickly. Thinking of this, Lu Chen first put away his kung fu. Speaking of which, this was the second time that Lu Chen had encountered the corpse of an itinerant immortal. The first one was at the bottom of the heavenly lake on the holy mountain, where he found it together with the corpse of Devil Beast Supreme. But last time, the itinerant immortal only left a task. This time, the itinerant immortal also left a will for Lu Chen. Now, Lu Chen seemed to have figured out one thing. Why was that itinerant immortal no match for Devil Beast Supreme? Itinerant immortals were immortal cultivators who had failed to pass the tribulation. Although they could use the tribulation transcendence pill to save their lives during the tribulation, if they failed, their physical bodies would be damaged to varying degrees. The mountain people and Mu Xian's injuries should be able to recover. This situation should be relatively common. In other words, most itinerant immortals were stronger than a peak 9-star king. But there were exceptions. For example, the itinerant immortal in front of him was in a very bad situation. He could only wait here for his death. In that case, there would be people whose strength would be greatly reduced, just like the one at the bottom of the heavenly lake on the holy mountain. It seems that the strength of itinerant immortals can't be generalized, Lu Chen said faintly. Forget it, let's get down to business first. The ice fire pearl floated above the corpse. Lu Chen simply sat cross-legged and removed the cold poison in his body. With the 9 refinements ice fire pearl beside Lu Chen felt that the cold poison in his body was getting weaker and weaker. It was quickly being absorbed by the spirit pill. So fast. As expected, the effect in the central area is much stronger than in the periphery. Lu Chen exclaimed. His cold poison was 10,000 times more potent than Lone Star's, but it was still disappearing very quickly. Lone Star, you actually didn't enter the central area. You were very close to the 2 treasures. It's a pity that you only took a small step and lost a great opportunity. You probably never dreamed that your original plan to kill me didn't succeed. Instead, it was a blessing in disguise. I obtained a Dharma treasure and an immortal cultivation technique. Not only did Lone Star not expect this, even Lu Chen himself did not expect this. In addition, Lu Chen's greatest gain was that he learned that in other people's worlds, there were also opportunities. You all said that the celestial demon set is not complete. Then is it possible that the celestial demon Wuxian exists in a different world? Lu Chen could not be sure about this. Let's not think so much. Although I can't cultivate, Lone Star was able to release the cold poison before he died. This means that after the cold poison is absorbed, I can use it. After saying that, Lu Chen immediately entered the state of anatta and carefully sensed the changes in the spirit pill. Chapter 1161. Time flew. Lu Chen had been practicing detoxification in the ice cave. Since there was a place to rest at the bottom of the lake, Lu Chen let out Su Yuan, Furry Ball, and Rhubarb to practice in the surrounding areas. Anyway, Su Yuan could help Furry Ball and Rhubarb hold their breath. With their strength, they would not be in danger on the ice plain star. They would also bring back some fish for Lu Chen. After all, Lu Chen still needed to eat. Day after day, the cold toxin in Lu Chen's body became weaker and weaker. While detoxifying, the cold toxin also turned into spiritual power, which constantly improved the level of Lu Chen's panacea. Unfortunately, this was not the Jiutian star, and the badge would not change. However, the strange thing was that Lu Chen only found that the cold poison had weakened after using the inner vision spirit pill several times, but he didn't know how to use the cold poison. Strange, why can Gu Xing explode with poison? Lu Chen was puzzled. Could it be that he misunderstood and Gu Xing did not use the cold toxin for himself? There is another possibility. Gu Xing did not completely suppress the cold toxin, but only managed to control it. Lu Chen pondered. Unfortunately, even if Gu Xing was alive, he would never tell Lu Chen, so Lu Chen could only focus on detoxifying himself. In this way, Lu Chen practiced for several months in the formation of the individual immortals' remains under the ice cave. On this day, Lu Chen found that the cold toxin in his body had completely disappeared. I've been here for several months. Lu Yi and the others must be worried. Lu Chen stood up and glanced at the remains of Zhenhua and Xian Bing immortal. Senior True Fire, it's all thanks to Senior's ninefold ice and fire pearl that I was able to cure the cold poison. I also received Senior's treasure. Lu Chen knelt before the skeleton. Lu Chen thanks you for saving my life and gifting me this treasure. After knocking on the skeleton 3 times, Lu Chen stood up and took the 9 refinements ice fire pearl floating above the skeleton. As soon as he took the orb, the skeleton collapsed in an instant. This. Senior, I didn't do it on purpose. Lu Chen's eyes widened. The precious pearl was also left to him by Zhenhua, so he didn't want to do anything else. At this moment, the arc-shaped light screen above his head that was isolating the lake water suddenly cracked, and the lake water was about to rush into the space. If the shield went down, tens of millions of tons of water would come crashing down. No, I have to get out of here quickly. Lu Chen hurriedly escaped from the side passage. Not long after Lu Chen left the grand array, the defensive array immediately collapsed, raising a large amount of mud. Lu Chen shook his head. It looked like this place had been completely destroyed. However, when the water pillar smashed down, it created a deep hole in the riverbed. It was as if it had been made into a grave for Senior True Fire. Perhaps that was what Senior True Fire had planned. Now that Lu Chen had fully recovered, he directly climbed to the surface of the lake. Beside the extremely cold ice cave, a member of the North Snow clan was stirring the water to prevent the lake from freezing. Originally, this job was done by the various great families, but because of Lu Chen, the North Snow clan had already reserved the place for 8 months. Now, the North Snow clan had sent people to guard the entrance of the ice cave. Stirring the lake water every few minutes was not a pleasant job, but the disciple was very diligent and did not complain. After stirring the lake water, the youth held the wooden paddle and stood in front of the well, staring at the lake in a daze. Senior Lone Tyrant, will you really come back? I hope you're fine. When I saw the battle between you and Lone Star, it touched me greatly. I don't know when I can be as strong as you, and be as decisive as you. Ha, I'm thinking too much. You're already at the peak of Ice Plain Planet, but I'm still stirring the water by the well. Just as he was muttering to himself, a person suddenly jumped out of the lake. The sudden change frightened the youth. He lost his balance and fell into the lake. Lu Chen had just come out of the lake when he saw someone pass by him. He could not help but be stunned. Could it be another family executing a felon? When he looked around, he found that there was no one around. If it was an execution, there should be someone supervising it. When he looked behind him, he saw a youth struggling in the lake water. He was frozen stiff and was sinking quickly. Lu Chen hurriedly turned around and pulled the young man out. Ordinary body refinement realm cultivators could not last more than 3 seconds in the extremely cold ice cave. At this time, they had already lost consciousness and their bodies were stiff. Lu Chen hurriedly circulated the weak earth fire and pressed a palm on the youth's chest to warm him up. Not long after, the youth finally woke up. When he opened his eyes, he almost cried out in surprise, "Senior Solipsistic." Lu Chen smiled slightly, "Are you all right?" The youth finally understood that it was Solipsistic who saved him. He hurriedly thanked him, "Senior, thank you for saving my life. You're from the North Snow family." Lu Chen saw that the youth had recovered and stood up. "Yes, yes. Since Senior Lone Quang entered the ice cave, this place has been guarded by the North Snow family's disciples. I only hope that Senior can see us when he comes out." Lu Chen nodded slightly. The North Snow family is quite considerate. "Little brother, how is the North Snow family now?" "Lu Yi, do you know?" "Yes, yes." Although Lu Chen was not arrogant and actually called a nameless North Snow family junior, little brother, the youth could not help but feel nervous. This was Solipsistic. He killed the strongest Lone Star of the Ice Plain Planet in one move and saved the lives of 10,000 people of the North Snow family. "You're still cold. Why are you still trembling?" "No, Senior, I'm just a little too excited." Lu Chen smiled slightly. "What's there to be excited about? I'm not a celebrity. Come, let's talk as we walk." Saying so, Lu Chen put his arm around the little brother's shoulder and walked towards the North Snow Mountain Villa. From the little brother, Yang Kai learned that Lu Yi had been staying in the North Snow family and would not leave until Lu Chen arrived. In addition, from the little brother's words, Yang Kai could tell that he respected Lu Yi very much. Not only him, but everyone in the North Snow family also respected Lu Yi very much. There were even disciples of the family who fought with outsiders because of a few bad words about her. Lu Chen smiled slightly. It seemed that after being careless and suffering from Lone Star's cold poison, he had gained some extra benefits. In the past, the North Snow family feared his strength, but now they were grateful to him from the bottom of their hearts and naturally respected Lu Yi. When his little sister got married, she was most afraid of suffering in her husband's family. Now that he had established his prestige in her husband's family, even if that little girl came to the Ice Plain Planet, she would not suffer. When Lu Chen and the little brother arrived at the North Snow Mountain Villa, the entire North Snow Mountain Villa was in an uproar. "Senior Du Quang is back. He's at the gate right now. Did you see that? Senior Du Quang treats Xiaozhi like a brother. No way, Xiaozhi's luck is too good. If I had known, I wouldn't have changed shifts with Xiaozhi even if I was beaten to death. What a loss." After Lu Yi learned that her brother had returned, she hurriedly rushed out. Ancestor Tai, Ling Jun, Gu Fei, Qing Ling, and the others also put down whatever they were doing and rushed to the gate. "Brother!" Lu Yi saw Lu Chen from afar and ran over crying, throwing herself into Lu Chen's arms. Lu Chen smiled and stroked Lu Yi's hair. "Silly girl, how did you become a crybaby? I told you, your brother won't die so easily." You're about to marry into the family, it's not good to cry in front of your future husband's family. Brother. Hearing the familiar tone and voice, Louis cried even more. Chapter 1162. Lu Chen had stayed on the ice plateau planet for too long. He said he would come for a month, but in the end, he stayed for half a year. However, in this half a year, Lu Chen was quite satisfied with the North Shui family. Since that was the case, the next step was to discuss Gu Fei and Lu Yi's marriage. I think it's better to do it now. Since Brother Du Kuang is here, why don't we do it in the next 2 days? North Shui Ling Jun said. Anyway, we have already prepared everything for the wedding. Lu Chen nodded. Gu Fei and Lu Yi's wedding has been delayed for a long time because of me too. No, this is called the road to happiness is strewn with setbacks. Now, it's a double blessing. Ling Jun was very excited. Then I will go and prepare immediately. 10 days later, Gu Fei and Lu Yi's wedding. The North Shui family was very busy. A few days later, all the big families of the Ice Plateau planet came from all over the planet to attend the wedding. Lu Chen roughly estimated that there were at least a few thousand representatives who came. Just the gifts alone were piled up into a small mountain. Sister's wedding was really too extravagant. Lu Yi was also busy familiarizing herself with the etiquette of the Ice Plateau planet, so she had no time to care about Lu Chen. On the last night of the preparations, the North Shui Manor had become a city that never sleeps. Lu Chen quietly left the North Shui Manor alone and found a quiet snowy mountain. He sat on a rock and watched the bustling North Shui Manor from afar. Bits and pieces of the time when he and his sister depended on each other flashed before his eyes. Speaking of which, every time he was in danger, that silly girl would always stand in front of him and say something silly like, "Mother told me to protect Big Brother." In the blink of an eye, his sister was about to get married. This feeling was like losing the most important thing to him. As he thought about it, Lu Chen's eyes turned red. The sister he had always protected with his life was about to become someone else's bride. At this moment, the soft sound of someone stepping on snow came from behind him. Not long after, a lithe figure came to Lu Chen's side. "Nameless Big Brother, are you crying?" Lu Chen glanced at Beishue Qingling. Why was this girl so good at chatting? No. Don't worry, Brother Gu Fei is a good person. He will risk his life for Sister Lu Yi. Lu Chen sighed. Well, although that kid's strength is a little weak, he's still somewhat strong. His words were full of jealousy. Beishue Qingling couldn't help but snicker. Nameless brother, Sister Lu Yi is getting married. Why don't you have a girlfriend yet? Lu Chen really underestimated Beishue Qingling. This girl wasn't just good at chatting, she was really good at chatting. Well, the time hasn't come yet, right? Do you have a girl you like? There was, but they were separated by someone. Lu Chen thought of the brat who had accompanied Little Green out for training. In other words, you don't have it now? Qingling looked at Lu Chen. Her bright eyes seemed to be bigger than usual. Even if there is, it's useless. We can't even see each other anymore. How can there be a chance? Lu Chen said helplessly. Oh then nameless brother, do you think I'm pretty? Lu Chen frowned slightly. Were all the girls on Ice Plateau planet so direct? But to be honest, Qingling was really beautiful, like a fairy. She wasn't this beautiful when he gave her the gem. Unfortunately, what did beauty have to do with him? It wasn't like she would fall for him for no reason. Lu Chen said honestly, well, you're very pretty. Qingling smiled shyly and secretly glanced at Lu Chen. But Nameless Brother didn't say anything else other than, pretty. He was still looking at the North Snow Villa. Maybe Nameless Brother didn't have any other thoughts. Oh right, I came in a hurry this time. I didn't expect them to get married so soon, so I didn't prepare any gifts. Lu Chen suddenly said. Qingling, what's the best treasure on Ice Plateau Planet? The best treasure is the Frost Dragon's heart. But the Frost Dragon lives in the North Pole, take me there. Lu Chen stood up. Let's hurry up. We should be able to make it. After saying that, Lu Chen summoned Ten-Winged and jumped onto the dragon's head with Qingling. Ten-Winged, don't get excited. This is my friend. Don't scare her. In order to prevent Ten-Winged from scaring the people of the North Snow Villa, Lu Chen greeted him in advance. This, nameless brother, your mount has appeared. Qingling looked at Ten-Winged's dragon head and couldn't help but be shocked by Ten-Winged's aura. Lu Chen smiled. Let's go. Let's get a few Frost Dragon's hearts first. Qingling's eyes widened. A few? One was hard to see in 100 years. As they spoke, Ten-Winged had already soared into the sky and headed straight for the North Pole. The next day, Gu Fei and Lu Yi's wedding day. The North Snow Villa was very lively. Countless guests were present. Lu Yi even performed a set of sword techniques with Gu Fei. They were a perfect match for each other. As the bride's guardian, Lu Chen also had to give the newlyweds a gift. Everyone knew that Lu Chen didn't prepare anything this time, let alone prepare any gifts. Gu Fei and Lu Yi stood in front of Lu Chen. Gu Fei changed his words first. Big brother. Lu Yi looked at her brother with red eyes. Big brother, Lu Chen responded. I didn't prepare any gifts this time either. Many items haven't appeared either. I wanted to give you the best dowry on your wedding day. I'm really ashamed. Big brother, no matter what you give, it will be the best dowry. Lu Yi said with a choked voice. Gu Fei also nodded heavily. Big brother, it's our fortune to have a big brother like you. Lu Chen smiled and nodded. He took out the gifts that he had prepared in advance. The first one was the flying shuttle mount. This was something that Lu Chen had said he wanted to give to Lu Yi. This was the perfect time to give it to her. One had to know that the price of a flying shuttle mount was not something that Earth's guide program could support. Until now, Lu Chen was the only one on Earth who had a flying shuttle mount. The flying shuttle mount was already of a very high grade. Coupled with the fact that it was a flying shuttle mount, the value of this gift could no longer be measured by the currency of Ice Plateau Planet. Damn, it's a flying shuttle mount. This is too extravagant. Patriarch Lingfeng's eyes widened. The number of flying shuttle mounts on Ice Plateau Planet can be counted with one hand. This flying shuttle mount is of the highest grade. Didn't you say you didn't prepare any gifts? What is this? After that, Lu Chen asked someone to bring a wooden box up. Although I didn't prepare any gifts, your big brother is still in the wholesale business. Lu Chen said as he opened the wooden box himself. When he opened the wooden box, a wave of biting cold air swept through the entire place. This time, everyone present couldn't help but stand up. Frost Dragon Heart. So much. Oh my god. There are at least 20 of them. Every one of these is priceless. What does it mean to have 20 of them? Wait, there's a Dragon King's heart inside. No way, there really is a Frost Dragon King's heart. That's a planet-level treasure. Sigh, look at other people's weddings. They're selling Frost Dragon hearts wholesale. How is this a dowry? It's enough to buy several North Snow villas. Chapter 1163. The number of Frost Dragons was already low, and after Lu Chen's sweep, there would not be any more Frost Dragon hearts on Ice Plateau Planet for a while. A shuttle and a box of Frost Dragon hearts. Such a generous gift, in Lu Chen's eyes, was indeed a little shabby. It could not be helped. After all, he did not prepare much. However, for Ice Plateau Planet, this gift was enough to make people drool with envy. Gu Fei, what kind of good fortune did he get? Is this dowry for a wife? He can even be a son-in-law. Solipsistic really dotes on his sister. How can this be called not preparing a gift? Who knows how many people would kill themselves if they saw this. Lu Chen took his sister's hand and placed it in Gufei's. Gufei, I'll leave my sister to you. Treat her well. Gufei nodded heavily. I guarantee with my life that I will always protect her. Lu Yi could not help but throw herself into her brother's arms. Brother, be good. Today is a big day. You can't cry anymore. Anyway, you're all in Jiutian. Oh right, Gufei, I'll bring you to our world when you have time. We have friends there to entertain. Okay, brother. As long as you have time, I'm available. After all, today was Gufei and his sister's wedding day. Lu Chen could not say too much. According to Ice Plateau Planet's customs, they still had to go to Ice Maiden Peak to pray for blessings and so on. Lu Chen accompanied them all the way. After a busy day, Lu Chen finally had time to rest. Calculating the time, there was still half a month before the portal to the sixth heaven opened. Lu Chen still had some matters to attend to in the fifth heaven. After spending a lot of time on Ice Plateau Planet, Lu Chen should also go back. The couple was still newlyweds. Lu Chen did not want to rush them back to the fifth heaven. The next day, after greeting Ancestor Taizu and Ling Jun, he headed to Ice Plateau Planet's teleportation point. Compared to the game cabin on Earth, if one wanted to enter the Jiutian fifth heaven or above, they had to use a teleportation point, which was the one they had teleported from. However, Lu Chen was not from Ice Plateau, so he needed someone to accompany him to teleport back. In the end, she decided to let Qing Ling accompany Lu Chen back to the fifth heaven. Lu Chen summoned Ten Winged, and the two of them arrived at the teleportation array a few hours later. Qing Ling, you've also reached the fifth heavenly layer. You're really fast. Brother Nameless, you just left the fifth layer of heaven, and I reached the fifth layer of heaven. My cultivation speed should be faster than Brother Gufei's. Oh. Lu Chen was a little surprised. Speaking of which, your status in the Bei Shui family seems to be higher than your brother's. Qing Ling said embarrassedly, no, it's just that I've been practicing with my great-grandmother since I was a child. She taught me everything she learned in her life, and, my physique is a bit special, so my family values it. Physique? What kind of constitution do you have? Ice Elemental Heaven and Earth Essence Physique. I met a sister named Shuang Ling before. She seems to be a friend of Big Brother Nameless. My physique is somewhat similar to hers, but not exactly the same. I was born with this physique. Lu Chen's eyes widened. One had to know that Shuang Ling was very strong. It wouldn't be long before she reached the sixth layer of heaven. However, Shuang Ling's ice god's blood was acquired. At that time, she was already on par with Lu Chen. However, Qing Ling was born with this physique. Her potential was probably higher than Shuang Ling's. Qing Ling smiled, Brother Nameless, actually, you're a little strange. What's wrong with me? You and Guxing both entered the ice cave, but Guxing didn't absorb the cold poison at all. He only managed to suppress it. Not only that, Guxing's cold poison has been lurking in his spiritual core. Under the nourishment of spiritual energy, it's constantly growing stronger, so the cold poison that erupts from him is even more violent than before. But, Brother Nameless' body actually has no more cold poison. There's not even a trace of it left. In other words, your spiritual core has perfectly absorbed the cold poison's ice element. I've never heard of such a situation. Lu Chen pondered for a moment. It should be related to his spiritual core. The characteristic of a spiritual core was that in its initial state, it didn't have any elemental affinity, but it could perfectly coexist with any element. This was the terrifying aspect of a spiritual core. It didn't belong to anything, but it contained everything. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the transmission point. Qing Ling brought Lu Chen through the transmission point and finally returned to the fifth layer of heaven. Nameless, brother Nameless, we've been on the ice plane star for half a year. We must be in a hurry to go back. Qing Ling lowered her head, I don't know when we'll meet again after this separation. Lu Chen smiled, we'll be a family in the future. Naturally, we'll have to visit each other more often. Next time, come to our hometown with your brother. Although Earth isn't a cultivation world, it has its benefits. Life is quite comfortable. I'll bring you around to play. Really? Of course. This time, Qing Ling was much happier. Okay, brother Nameless, it's a promise. It's a promise. After bidding farewell to Qing Ling, Lu Chen inquired about Luo Yao. This time, the little beast wasn't around. Maybe they could continue their previous fate, however, things didn't go as planned. Lu Chen just found out that Luo Yao had gone into seclusion a year ago. It seemed like it would take a long time. It seemed like he wouldn't be able to see her this time. Since he couldn't see Luo Yao, Lu Chen only had one thing left to do. Heaven-reaching tower. Puppet Master. Walking in the magical beast lair, the surrounding magical beasts avoided him. Obviously, they still remembered that this fiend was someone they couldn't afford to offend. Directly arriving at the heaven-reaching tower, Lu Chen sneered and entered the heaven-reaching tower. The familiar spacious boss hall. There were some cracks on the ground that looked somewhat familiar. It seemed to be caused by the self-destruction of the four supreme magical beasts' spiritual cores. It hadn't been completely repaired until now. At this time, the Heaven Domain boss opposite Lu Chen was extremely shocked. You, who are you? You're not from the fifth celestial layer. The fifth celestial layer boss was indeed smarter. It wasn't like the wild monster boss from the previous floors who attacked as soon as they saw someone entering the tower. Lu Chen was also very shocked. The Heaven Domain boss opposite him was actually not a puppet master. Who are you? Of course I'm a fifth celestial layer boss. You're the one entering the tower and you're asking me who I am. Lu Chen frowned, where's that puppet master from before? He went to the sixth celestial layer. Sixth celestial layer. Lu Chen frowned. That guy was actually at the sixth celestial layer. No, he had to return to the sixth celestial layer. Even if he had to turn the sixth celestial layer upside down, he had to find that puppet master. If it wasn't for that guy, he wouldn't have been so miserable in the beginning. He even almost died a few times. Hey, I don't care what kind of Heaven Domain boss you are. The one I want to kill is the puppet master, not you. So I'll give you a chance. If you let me go now, I'll spare your life. Lu Chen said coldly. The Heaven Domain boss stared at Lu Chen. He narrowed his eyes and went silent for a moment. Do you think that I, the Heaven Domain boss, am a freeloader? So what if you're at the sixth celestial layer? To be able to become a fifth celestial layer boss, how could I be afraid of you? Lu Chen snorted. It seemed like he still had to fight. God and Demon Symbiosis. Activate your status. Lu Chen said indifferently. God and Demon Symbiosis. Wait. You're solipsistic. The exit is right behind me. If you need to teleport to any continent, just tell me and I'll teleport you to a fixed location. Chapter 1164. Reality proved that there were still people who knew how to adapt to circumstances, such as the current level 5 Heaven Domain boss. Facing such a meticulous service, Lu Chen could only awkwardly put away the demon god symbiosis. Can you send me to Xinyuan continent? No problem, I'll definitely send you there. Thank you. Just like that, Lu Chen successfully returned to Xinyuan continent. Just as he returned to the academy, Lu Chen discovered that the academy seemed to be a little different from before. The number of students had increased by a lot, and there were also many new teachers that he had never seen before. There were many new teaching pavilions and meditation pavilions in the academy, as well as a new academy dormitory area. The martial arts field and arena had been refurbished, and there was a pair of stone lions in front of each of the 10 great halls, emitting dense spirit energy. The concentration of spirit energy in the entire academy was several times higher than before. Damn! What's going on? Lu Chen almost thought that he had entered the wrong academy. He had only left for 9 months, and there had already been earth-shattering changes. Could it be that other than pets that had to be raised freely, the academy also had to be raised freely? A sea of clouds and the others were already so busy that they couldn't find him, so Lu Chen returned to his room. Although Little Green wasn't at home, his residence was still very clean. It seemed that there was someone who was responsible for cleaning his residence. Lu Chen closed the door and prepared to check his personal panel. After cultivating in the extreme cold ice cave for more than half a year, he still didn't know the exact situation of his advancement. It was just that he inadvertently saw that his badge had been automatically worn without him noticing. 9 stars field, Theo the Great. Damn, I'm 9 stars. Lu Chen didn't dare to believe it. He only knew that he had become much stronger, but he didn't expect that he could improve so much in 8 months. Speaking of which, Lone Star seemed to have stayed in the ice cave for more than 10 years, and he had a mental cultivation method to cultivate. Lu Chen was treating the cold poison inside, and he actually rose by 8 stars. The great formation set up by Senior True Fire and the 9 refined ice fire pearl are too helpful for cultivation. It's a pity that the great formation has already been destroyed. My hands are really cheap. Why did I rush to take the 9 refined ice and fire pearl? Otherwise, how great would it be to directly ascend to a 9-star king? Lu Chen was filled with regret. However, at this point, there was no point in regretting. That's right. Now that my level is high, I should be able to use my spiritual energy to wrap the badge so that others won't be able to see it. Lu Chen gave it a try and quickly found a way. It's quite simple. This way, others won't see my level increase, so I don't have to explain. Lu Chen then tried to have the system identify the 9 refined ice and fire pearl. 9 smelted ice and fire pearl, extracted, divine level auxiliary magic treasure. This artifact is artificially refined and has no artifact spirit. Increase natural cultivation speed by 100%. Have both ice and fire forms at the same time. Different forms can be selected during cultivation to increase the elemental affinity of the ice and fire elements respectively. The speed and upper limit of the increase vary from person to person. The area of effect is 500 meters. Lu Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. It was actually a divine artifact level transcendent artifact. Although it didn't have an artifact spirit, as an auxiliary magic treasure, it didn't need an artifact spirit. Coupled with the immortal level cultivation method, True Fire Dark Ice Sword Art, that he obtained this time, Lu Chen's cultivation level increased by 8 stars. This trip to the Ice Plain planet was really a big gain. Now I'm already at the peak of the 9-star Theo the Great. I'm almost at the Human King realm. Lu Chen was suddenly very concerned about his level, which was rare for him. In other words, as long as I absorb more star cores, it won't take me many years to pass the tribulation. Thinking of this, Lu Chen was a little excited. However, at the same time, Lu Chen remembered the words of the mountain man. Those who pass the tribulation should abandon their emotions and desires. Otherwise, the more fetters they have, the more terrifying the tribulation they will encounter. The individual immortal in the ice cave is all alone, which means that he has abandoned many things. Even with the 9 refined ice and fire pearl and the True Fire Dark Ice Sword Art, he can't withstand the 7th level tribulation. If he fails, he can only wait for death. Lu Chen frowned. For someone like him, the tribulation he would encounter would be even more terrifying. Passing the tribulation could be said to be the last stage of a cultivator. Once successful, one would become a true immortal and jump out of the 6 paths. However, just how many top-notch experts had failed at this final stage? The Mountain Man and Mu Xian were only individual immortals. With the Jotian's character, if they don't give me the highest level of tribulation, I'll feel like they're looking down on me. Lu Chen muttered. It seemed that he couldn't be too hasty about passing the tribulation. Just then, a few people rushed in from outside the door. Nameless, you're finally back. It was a sea of clouds. You've been too comfortable as a director who doesn't have to do anything. You've been gone for almost a year. You didn't even show up for the Academy celebration. Academy celebration? Yes, it's the first anniversary of entering the rankings. A sea of clouds said angrily. You don't know how many big shots came to the Academy celebration last time. Oh my God, everyone wanted to ask where Nameless was. I was so annoyed. Now our Academy has more than 7,000 people. The ranking of the Sacred Academy has been rising. Yi Fan and the others have participated in several competitions and won first place. But you didn't even show up once. Don't you know that the students want to get your affirmation? Lu Chen felt guilty after being scolded. Well, I didn't want to. But something happened, forget it, forget it. Anyway, I already knew that you're a director who doesn't have to do anything. Old E and I will take care of other things. But now there's something more troublesome that you have to solve. What's the matter? Lu Chen asked curiously. Did you know that your battle with Dark Eclipse drew out a group of old monsters? I heard a little about it, but I don't know the details. At that time, I went to the 5th heaven. Many of those old guys are now at the Sacred Academy of Gods and Demons. Ah! Lu Chen exclaimed. What are they doing here? Well, you might not believe it, but they said that they want to give you a cash withdrawal scroll. A sea of clouds seemed to be puzzled. Lu Chen was even more shocked when he heard this. What did that mean? After living in seclusion for so many years, they finally came out just to give him a cash withdrawal scroll. He didn't know them. What was going on? Sigh, I didn't dare to offend these people. Fortunately, they didn't cause any trouble. They even helped teach the students and gave pointers to the disciples, so I didn't drive them away. Lu Chen was completely confused about the situation. He quickly followed a sea of clouds to meet those people. In the Great Hall of Gods and Demons, Lu Chen called over more than 50 hidden experts. Lu Chen looked at these unfamiliar faces and said, Everyone, I heard that you are looking for me for something. I just found out. I wonder why you are staying in the Sacred Academy of Gods and Demons. Everyone looked at each other. Finally, an old man stood up and cupped his fists towards Lu Chen. I am Tian Xian of the Painted Fan Continent, Peak 9-star Human King Realm. Hello, Senior Tian Xian. Lu Chen cupped his fists in return. Tian Xian's gaze fell on Lu Chen's badge. This guy's badge was actually covered with a layer of spiritual energy. Even he couldn't see it clearly. I would like to ask, what is little friend Du Kuang's cultivation level now? Lu Chen smiled. In 8 months, from 1-star Emperor Xiu to 9-star Theo the Great, it was really shocking. But there was no other way. Since others asked, it was time to show it. Lu Chen removed the spiritual energy cover. I'm already 9-star Theo the Great. What? 9-star Theo the Great. Tian Xian's eyes widened. The speed is really incredible, but it's still too low. Lu Chen was stunned. It was rare for him to show off his cultivation level, but he was actually despised. It's like this, little friend Du Kuang. We all joined forces to help you reach the peak of 9-star Human King Realm as soon as possible. Tian Xian explained, after all, as long as you are in the 6th heavenly layer, no one can pass the 6th heavenly layer's heavenly tribulation. Chapter 1165. Lu Qin did not understand and asked, "What does your tribulation have to do with me? Isn't the heavenly tribulation determined by each person's situation?" Tian Xian said, "Little friend Du Kuang, the strength of the heavenly tribulation is indeed determined by each person, but the celestial phenomenon will also affect the strength of the heavenly tribulation to a certain extent. As the saying goes, the right time, the right place, and the right people are all indispensable. That day when you fought with Dark Eclipse, the two masters of providence fought and caused the celestial phenomenon. But in the end, it caused the great ominous celestial phenomenon. Coupled with the matter of old devil Tianyin, it's now the extreme ominous celestial phenomenon. According to the previous situation, if you undergo the heavenly tribulation now, the strength of the heavenly tribulation will be at least one level higher than before." Lu Qin frowned. "Then, if I was originally going to face a level 9 heavenly tribulation, wouldn't I have to face a level 10 heavenly tribulation with the help of the celestial phenomenon?" Wu Chang stood up and said, "In theory, that's the case. But since ancient times, without considering the influence of the celestial phenomenon, the number of level 8 heavenly tribulations can be counted on one hand. Generally, the heavenly tribulation is around level 5 or 6. But if it's you, we can't rule out the possibility that you will encounter a super heavenly tribulation." Lu Qin almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. This brother is really straightforward. "Seniors, what's the difference in the strength of the level 1 heavenly tribulation?" Lu Qin took the opportunity to inquire about the heavenly tribulation. "It's hard to say. Different types of heavenly tribulation have different strengths. Generally speaking, for the same type of heavenly tribulation, the difference in strength is 9 times. Lu Qin suddenly felt like he had been hit by 1,000,000 tons. If he encountered a level 10 or higher super heavenly tribulation, and if it was the same type of heavenly tribulation as the fallen loose immortal in the ice cave, then it would be 729 times more difficult, or even thousands of times more difficult. The key was that the loose immortal was quite strong, but a level 7 heavenly tribulation had already killed him." Lu Qin swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Tian Xian continued, "Little friend Du Kuang, the celestial phenomenon this time is extremely dangerous, more dangerous than any other ominous celestial phenomenon in history. There are 2 major factors. One is the result of your battle with Dark Eclipse, and the other is that old devil Tianin's coming out of seclusion." "Old devil Tianin? He also affected the weather?" Lu Qin asked curiously. "Old devil Tianin is the founder of the Heavenly Music Pavilion. He reached the 9-star monarch realm 600 years ago. His strength is unfathomable. However, he stayed in the 6th heaven to comprehend the Tao realm. Now that he has come out of seclusion, it seems like he has finally comprehended a powerful Tao realm." Wu Chang explained. "Both of you appeared in the 6th heaven at the same time, which led to the ominous heavenly phenomenon." At this point, Tian Xian let out a sigh. "Little friend Du Kuang, for anyone, heavenly tribulation is not a child's play. Becoming an immortal is the ultimate pursuit of all immortal cultivators, and it is also the ultimate test of all immortal cultivators. We haven't transcended the tribulation all these years and have been paying attention to the astronomical phenomena. Why is that? Because the gap between the first level of the heavenly tribulation is something that we must strive for." Wu Chang also sighed. "However, what awaits us is an extremely ominous heavenly phenomenon. Unless the factor that changes the heavenly phenomenon disappears, the difficulty of the heavenly tribulation will greatly increase in 10 years, or even longer. Therefore, we hope that you can transcend the tribulation as soon as possible. After all, you can't change the heavenly phenomenon. We are also willing to give you the cash withdrawal scrolls that we have accumulated so that you can reach the peak of the 9-star human king realm as soon as possible." Lu Qin looked at these super powerhouses in shock. Fortunately, they were not his teammates. Otherwise, this group of people would sell their teammates without even thinking about it. Perhaps for them, not to mention that they did not have much interaction with Lu Qin, even if they did, they would not be limited to the ways of the world. If they gave Lu Chen the cash withdrawal scrolls, Lu Chen would transcend the tribulation as soon as possible and reduce the difficulty of the heavenly tribulation. It was a win-win situation for them, so there was nothing to be embarrassed about. Calculating the time, there were still 8 years left before the final battle. Lu Chen would never wait 10 years or even longer to transcend the tribulation when the heavenly phenomenon changed. Lu Chen looked at these people. He obviously did not like these guys who did not talk about martial ethics. However, it seemed a little silly to refuse to give away the cash withdrawal scrolls for free. How many cash withdrawal scrolls can you give me? Lu Chen asked. 10 million. Tian Xian said, the cash withdrawal scrolls are no longer useful to us. These cash withdrawal scrolls can increase your spiritual energy to 5 million, which is the strength of a peak 9-star martial king. At the same time, the other 5 million can be used to max out your three-dimensional attributes. Lu Chen thought about it. A 9-star human king's spiritual energy was only 5 million. If that was the case, his battle soul's spiritual energy would not hinder him. After all, his battle soul's spiritual energy was already 14 million. However, his battle soul's three-dimensional attributes were not enough. His body's three-dimensional attributes were 30 times the spiritual energy. If his spiritual energy was 5 million, then each of his three-dimensional attributes could be increased to 150 million. Currently, his spiritual energy was only slightly more than 1 million. The upper limit of my battle soul's attributes is not enough, Lu Chen said. However, he did not say that his battle soul's upper limit was only 3 dimensions. Tian Xian immediately said, of course. If the immortal cultivator's level could be increased by the cash withdrawal scrolls alone, 9-star human kings would be everywhere. The battle soul is actually a virtual upper limit of a person's strength. If the battle soul does not break through, you will not be able to break through. However, we have also thought of a way for you. In this 6th heaven, there is a sacred cultivation place called the Thunder Sacred Land. In the Kunlun continent, you will need at most 30 years. With these cash withdrawal scrolls, you should be able to reach the 9-star human king level. Kunlun continent, Thunder Sacred Land. Lu Chen suddenly thought of the Thunder Sacred Court recommended by the people in the mountains. Could this be the true intention of the people in the mountains? Lu Chen frowned. Didn't you say that the power of the heavenly tribulation would increase within 10 years? You are willing to wait 30 years for me. Wu Chang explained, when we said 10 years, it is not that the extreme ominous signs only have 10 years. It is that we can only see the next 10 years. Tian Xian also said, if you really only need to wait 10 years for the heavenly signs to improve, why would we help you increase your strength? We have already waited for decades. Why would we care about another 10 years? Lu Chen was speechless. He could see that this group of old fellows were eager to send him away. They gave him cash withdrawal scrolls and provided him with a cultivation place. Aren't you going to ask old ghost Tianyin? Lu Chen asked. Him. He was at the peak of the 9-star 600 years ago. He hid in the Tianyin Thunder Marsh to meditate in seclusion and refused to pass the tribulation. It is impossible for him to pass the tribulation now. That's right. He has the Tianyin Thunder Marsh, but we don't. If he doesn't pass the tribulation within 50 years, he will pass it by force. That's why we are so anxious. Lu Chen shook his head. It seemed that they knew that old ghost Tianyin couldn't pass the tribulation, so they could only rely on him. 30 years. Lu Chen didn't have that long. After thinking for a while, Lu Chen suddenly said, don't you want me to leave the 6th heaven as soon as possible? Okay. 100 million cash withdrawal scrolls, 100 spiritual source magic treasures, 50 demigod equipment, and 50 sets of heaven-level advanced cultivation methods. Lu Chen said lightly. Tian Xian and the others widened their eyes. They had never seen such an exorbitant demand. Solipsistic, don't, don't go too far. Your demand is too outrageous. Someone immediately rebuked. Lu Chen was unmoved. He stood up and looked at the crowd. Are these things still so important to you? You have forgotten your family and friends, but you can't forget your nature of pursuing interests. No wonder you don't dare to pass the tribulation. Besides, I haven't finished my words. You agreed to my conditions, and I also agree to pass the tribulation within 2 years. Chapter 1166. Hearing Lu Chen's words, all the 9-star king experts shut their mouths. Tribulation within 2 years. Didn't you say that your battle soul's attribute is not enough? Someone asked. Lu Chen smiled, this is my business. I will put all the resources you give me in the Divinity Devil's sacred courtyard. If I can't do it, I will announce the dissolution of the Divinity Devil's sacred courtyard. I will also be at your disposal. You don't want the cash withdrawal scroll? Tian Xian looked at Lu Chen in shock. I said, this is my business. You can give me the resources according to the requirements, or you can stay and supervise. Leaving all the resources in the holy courtyard of the gods and demons, and then disbanding the gods and demons, it was obvious that all the resources they had fought for before had gone to waste. In addition, Lu Chen was at their disposal. With such conditions, there was no possibility of cheating. Little friend Du Quan, can we discuss this? Lu Chen nodded and temporarily left the Divinity Devil's sacred courtyard. Tian Xian and the others discussed for a while and called Lu Chen back. Solipsistic, we have discussed this. Even we can't take out so many resources with your conditions. Tian Xian said, you should know that we have already left our original forces and haven't fought for resources for a long time. We just have some spares in our hands. We can give you 80 million cash withdrawal scroll, 60 spiritual origin magic treasures. As for the quality, they are much better than what your sacred courtyard is using now. 70 sets of high-grade heaven-grade cultivation techniques, 1 set of wind elemental immortal technique, and 100 dragon phoenix nirvana pills. As for half-divine tools, Brother Du Quan, we do have 2 or 3 of them. However, we need to keep them for our own tribulation. Without half-divine tools, our strength will be greatly reduced. Lu Chen thought for a while. What Tian Xian said was true. He couldn't ask for the resources they needed to make a living. Of course, Lu Chen offered a sky-high price to give the other party room to bargain. Regardless of whether they gave him resources or not, he would still need to undergo tribulation. It was equivalent to making a profit for free. Moreover, the other party was even willing to give him a wind-type immortal technique and 100 high-grade immortal pills. This was beyond Lu Chen's expectations. Lu Chen was silent for a long time. Finally, he shook his head helplessly. Sigh, you didn't give me the conditions I expected. Then, I can only guarantee that I will transcend the tribulation in 3 years. Lu Chen was just saying. Of course, he wanted to transcend the tribulation as soon as possible. The main reason was to let the other party feel that Lu Chen didn't gain any advantage, and instead lost out. 3 years it is. We can wait for 1 more year. Everyone answered without hesitation. Lu Chen nodded. This deal was officially finalized. 3 days later, a large number of resources were sent to the Divine Devil Academy. A sea of clouds was shocked to see so many resources being sent into the Academy's warehouse. He looked at Lu Chen in disbelief. Nameless, did you really agree to their request? Lu Chen nodded. Anyway, I want to transcend the tribulation as soon as possible. Now, not only are there people giving me resources, but they're also doing me a favor. Why not? How long did you agree to transcend the tribulation? 3 years. Lu Chen's expression was solemn. 3 years. He didn't know if he could make it in time for the final battle. Those who participated in the final battle were the 10 great Celestial Supremes. That Celestial Supremes shouldn't be Zhongxian Ge's Celestial Supremes. They were the 10 strongest human Celestial Supremes in the entire galaxy. Real Celestial Supremes. 1 in 10 billion. Maybe even more. And he hadn't transcended the tribulation yet. Thinking of this, Lu Chen muttered, 3 years is too long. I'll try to transcend the tribulation in 2 years. 2 years. You're now a 9-star Theo the Great. Who knows how many years it'll take just to raise the upper limit of your battle soul's attributes. A sea of clouds said. Lu Chen smiled. Of course I have a way. Old Sea, during this time, I may be out training. I'll leave the academy's matters to you guys. Also, you, Old E, Long Xiang, and the others. If you can level up, take some cash extraction scrolls to level up. I said that I'll leave the cash extraction scrolls for the Holy Academy of Gods and Demons, but I didn't say that I'll only give it to the disciples. They won't say anything if I give it to you guys. A sea of clouds was stunned. This, Lu Chen patted a sea of clouds' shoulder and said with a smile, I don't care what bottlenecks you guys encountered in the past. Now that you're from the Holy Academy of Gods and Demons, your path of cultivation shouldn't stop here. A sea of clouds' eyes suddenly lit up. He was already so old. Could he still continue? A sea of clouds said, Yi Fan and the others are trying to decipher the characteristics of the first level of the heavenly word nourishing body technique. If they can decipher it, this technique's level will be extremely high. It can help us old guys improve our battle soul's attributes and break through our bottlenecks. Sure enough, a sea of clouds and the others, other than the limitations of their physical bodies, their biggest obstacle was their battle soul's attributes. Oh. How's their progress? Actually, their techniques are better than Tian Yu's. Chu Tian, Xiao Zhan, Wu Xian, and Skyfall are all slacking. Only Yi Fan is deciphering it day and night. Lu Chen frowned. Why is that kid working so hard? Is his own technique not as good as Tian Yu's? That's not it. His technique's level is the highest. I gave him a price. If he can solve the first level's spiritual energy circulation problem, the Academy will reward him with 5 million spirit stones. This is 5 million spirit stones. That's too cheap. A sea of clouds secretly pulled Lu Chen and winked at him. If you really want to give him a reasonable price, spirit stones can't even measure it, right? After the first level, there's still the second and third level. When the time comes, we won't be able to afford it. It just so happens that he's short of money recently. He owes a lot of money to the Black Armor King, so he's not picky. Lu Chen blinked. Didn't Yi Fan take first place in 5 or 6 competitions before? The prize money should be several million, right? Why hasn't he come ashore yet? Don't talk about the prize money, he even sold the trophy. A sea of clouds shook his head. That guy burns more money than anyone else when it comes to cultivation. In the end, he's improved so fast recently. Plus, his business EQ is basically negative. Now, the more he earns, the more he owes. Oh, I heard that he just paid off his debt a while ago. Later, he couldn't help but gamble and owe a lot of money. Is this guy really going to lose every time he gambles? Lu Chen sighed. Forget it. Fortunately, his strength improved fast enough. At least his terrifying fortune didn't affect his strength. In any case, after receiving a large wave of sponsorship, the Holy Academy of Gods and Demons' current wealth suddenly became a lot thicker. In addition to the monthly subsidy for the Holy Academy's ranking, Lu Chen didn't have to worry about the development of the Holy Academy of Gods and Demons for a short period of time. That afternoon, Lu Chen packed up his things, summoned the 9 wings, and prepared to leave the Holy Academy of Gods and Demons. Standing in the clouds, Lu Chen looked down at the academy. From the very beginning, there were only a few teaching pavilions and a few dormitories. There were only him and a sea of clouds. Now, there were nearly 10,000 disciples. There were a lot of talents. All the facilities were open. The Holy Academy of Gods and Demons was no longer the shabby little academy it used to be. This time, Lu Chen didn't know how long it would take to find the star core, but when he returned, it would also be the day he left the sixth layer of heaven. Looking at the figures of the disciples who were working hard to cultivate in the martial arts practice field, Lu Chen took a deep breath and slowly said, "Little brats, take care." Chapter 1167. Lu Chen had already figured out the matter of the Thunder Sacred Courtyard. The reason why the mountain people recommended Lu Chen to go there was probably because the Thunder Sacred Courtyard was closer to the Thunder Sacred Ground. Judging from the names of the two places, perhaps the disciples of the Thunder Sacred Courtyard could gain some additional advantages. If it was the previous Lu Chen, the Thunder Sacred Courtyard would be a place he couldn't avoid. But now, he had accidentally fused with the dragon crystal and obtained a mutated dragon species. And he had healed the weakened state of the dragon crystal by absorbing the star core's spiritual energy. In the process of absorbing the star core's spiritual energy, Lu Chen could also quickly increase his attributes. Directly absorbing the star core's spiritual energy was a faster way to cultivate than in the Thunder Sacred Ground. Now, Lu Chen naturally didn't need to go to the Thunder Sacred Courtyard anymore. He just needed to find more star cores. However, in the mirror 7 elements to 1 array, Lu Chen also found a problem. The best time was about half a month after absorbing a certain star core for the first time. After this time, although he could still increase his strength, the effect would become weaker and weaker. And the larger the planet star core, the more obvious the effect would be if no one had discovered it. Therefore, Lu Chen's target was a large planet where no star core had been found. Asking one by one was obviously too inefficient. The best way was to find Taihao. Lu Chen set off from Zhongxiangu and headed to the Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace. After interacting with Taihao a few times, Lu Chen's relationship with the Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace had become much closer. When Lu Chen arrived at the Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace, someone directly brought him to Taihao. "Senior Taihao, I haven't thanked you for the matter of the Immortal Palace's Meru realm. This time, I'll have to trouble you again," Lu Chen said with some embarrassment. Taihao smiled slightly. "If the dark corrosion isn't removed, I'm afraid it will cause trouble everywhere. You've already helped me a lot by handling this matter properly. There's no need to thank me." Lu Chen continued. Senior Taihao mentioned that the Purple Heavenly Palace and the Heavenly Music Pavilion were conspiring. Have you found out the truth? Speaking of this, Taihao unconsciously withdrew his smile and his expression turned solemn. Tianyin Old Geezer has already come out of seclusion. He must have gained a lot this time. As for Purple Knight Son of Heaven's side, experts are also about to come out of seclusion. When the time comes, the sixth heaven will probably be filled with bloodshed. Lu Chen frowned slightly. Senior Taihao, doesn't the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace have an expert stronger than Old Man Tianyin? Taihao smiled bitterly. Let's put it this way. Of course, my Royal Heaven Immortal Palace isn't afraid of the experts from the Violet Heaven Palace. I have at least 80% confidence in defeating them. But the troublesome one was Old Ghost Tianyin. The Tianyin Old Devil is an exception. He reached the peak of the 9 stars of the Human King realm in his early years. Logically speaking, after such a long time, the heavenly tribulation should have found him even if he did not go to the Tower of Heaven to undergo the tribulation. In the end, that guy had a magic weapon that could avoid the heavenly tribulation. It was called the Tianyin Thunder Pond. Lu Chen nodded. He had heard Tian Xian and the others mention this item before. Therefore, those stronger than him had already undergone the tribulation. Naturally, they wouldn't stay at the sixth heaven. As for the rest, I'm afraid it would be very, very difficult for them to have his strength. Taihao's meaning was self-evident. Old man Tianyin was the source of his fear. Lu Chen thought for a while and said, Senior Taihao, if the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace needs Lu Chen, just send me a voice transmission. Taihao's eyes widened. Lu Chen, you are willing to fight for the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace? You should know that old man Tianyin isn't an ordinary 9 stars peak. Recently, there has been an anomaly in the celestial phenomenon. The root cause is related to old man Tianyin. Lu Chen snorted coldly. Senior Taihao has done me a favor. I should repay the favor of a drop of water with a gushing spring, not to mention the fact that Senior has helped me several times. I'm not interested in the celestial phenomenon. I only know that he shouldn't provoke me. Otherwise, no matter what 9 stars peak he is, I will flatten the heavenly music parlor. Taihao took a deep breath and smiled. Lu Chen, Xian's judgment is really right. You are a trustworthy friend. However, you have to remember one thing. The more fetters you have, the fiercer the heavenly tribulation, Taihao said. Others would try their best to get rid of their fetters and desires before undergoing the tribulation. However, you are still so casual. Plus, you are the master of the fiend god-defying sect and the extremely fierce celestial phenomenon. With all these factors added together, I am really a little worried about your heavenly tribulation. Lu Chen also knew that Taihao's worry wasn't groundless. Without even thinking, how could Zhoutian let him successfully undergo the tribulation? No matter what heavenly tribulation it is, I am me. Lu Chen said firmly. If I forget my friends and family, forget the past, then even if I undergo the tribulation and become an immortal, that person will no longer be me, Lu Chen. What's the point of becoming an immortal like this? If this is the rule, then I will break the rule. If this is the great Tao, then I will go against the current. Lu Chen's words made Taihao's eyes widen. This guy, who was usually approachable and even a little sloppy, was really admirable when he got serious. Perhaps it was because of this that Lu Chen was qualified to enter the origin world in the mountain realm. Break the rule, go against the current. Taihao said angrily. I've seen countless people, but I've never seen a guy with a temperament like yours. Lu Chen smiled. Senior Taihao, you flatter me. Lu Chen, I'll get someone to prepare a document for you right away, but it may only be ready tomorrow. As the saying goes, sharpening the axe won't delay the work of cutting wood. Don't be in a hurry. Tonight, don't leave. Let's have a few drinks. Lu Chen also knew that there must be a lot of information about the various continents. It was good enough that they could get it done in one day, so he naturally had no reason to decline. At the banquet, Lu Chen, Taihao, and a group of people from the Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace drank to their heart's content. However, the strange thing was that Xian was not at the banquet. After the banquet, Lu Chen returned to his room to rest. Outside the door, a beautiful figure was hiding in the dark and pacing back and forth. There was also a small person standing on her shoulder. Master, do you really want me to use such a despicable method to get Lu Chen? Xian said in distress. Xian, you saw it too. This kid is too strong. Today, your father and the others finally got him drunk. If you don't use this opportunity, there won't be another chance. But Master, Xian, I originally thought that he was a couple with Jiu, but it turns out that we were all wrong. They're just ordinary friends. The small person said anxiously. We're all adults, right? He's not married and you're not married. Isn't it normal for something to happen when love is strong? But you want me to drug him. How is this love? What drug? That's just a little thing to liven things up. Don't you think I don't know? Xian, let me tell you, if you miss this opportunity, this kid might leave after the tribulation. You'll regret it for the rest of your life. No matter what, he's still someone with the bloodline of the Chaos Dragon God. It's not wrong for the bloodline of the heavenly celestial tribe. With the strong joining forces, our child will definitely stand at the finish line the moment he's born. This. Master, I think we should just forget about it. I'm afraid he'll hate me. Hate what? How is this unfair to him? The small person said anxiously. Besides, I'm asking you to drug yourself, not him. Why would he hate you? When the time comes, he'll be the one who willingly detoxifies your poison. Tian Xian was still hesitating. Then, what if he doesn't detoxify me? What are you afraid of? I've already prepared the antidote for you. Don't worry and do it. I guarantee that nothing will go wrong. In the end, Tian Xian could not resist her master's persuasion. She knocked on the door nervously. Lu Chen's voice came from inside. Tian Xian gritted her teeth and walked in with a pot of wine. Chapter 1168. Lu Chen was a little drunk. When he saw Tian Xian walk in, he immediately felt that this woman was even prettier than usual. Xian, her. Lu Chen frowned slightly. What's the matter? Tian Xian was a little uncomfortable. She didn't even dare to look into Lu Chen's eyes. After a long while, she came back to her senses. Oh, it's nothing. I wasn't at home before, so I didn't get to drink with you. After I found out that you were leaving, I felt that it was a pity to miss it. I brought a small pot of soft wine. Lu Chen frowned. Tian Xian liked to drink too. She actually came here to drink with him. He didn't expect Tian Xian to be such a bold woman. Tian Xian saw that Lu Chen hadn't said anything, so she hurriedly said, I was rude. You've already drunk a lot. I think we should have another chance next time. After saying that, she turned around to leave. Stop. Who said I can't drink anymore? Lu Chen called out to Tian Xian. How much can your small pot of wine contain? Come, let's drink a few cups. I think we should do it next time. What next time? Just this time, I have to drink. Tian Xian was speechless. She had wanted to leave, but Lu Chen dragged her back. The two of them sat at the table, and Tian Xian took off her veil. Lu Chen glanced at her. This woman was a little familiar. You took off your veil in front of me before. Oh, I remember now. You were the guide disciple at the prodigy competition. Lu Chen remembered. I was wondering why your eyes looked so familiar. So we've met before. That day, the Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace was too busy. You went to help, right? Help? What was this guy thinking? She was the young mistress of the Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace. Why would she become a guide disciple? Wasn't it to see him? Tian Xian nodded awkwardly. Ah. Yes, there really weren't enough people that day. Lu Chen nodded appreciatively. What a good girl. Come, let me fill it up for you. Can you drink? If you can't, then drink less. This wine isn't too strong. I won't get drunk even if I drink a whole bottle, Tian Xian replied absent-mindedly. Well, that's good. Otherwise, you'll say that I bullied you. Lu Chen filled their wine glasses to the brim. Let me toast you first. The last time you accompanied me to the lower realm, the journey was much more interesting than when I went alone. When Tian Xian heard this, she temporarily forgot her nervousness. She tilted her head and looked at Lu Chen. Really? Lu Chen nodded. Of course. With a beauty accompanying me, it won't be so boring. Tian Xian was secretly delighted. It seemed that Lu Chen did not hate her. At this moment, someone tugged at her clothes. Only then did Tian Xian remember the purpose of this trip. Honey trap. If he missed this opportunity, there wouldn't be another one. Lu Chen had just raised his wine glass when Tian Xian raised her hand. I've been feeling a little unwell recently, so I'll take it with the wine. Lu Chen immediately asked with concern, "Oh. What's wrong with your body? Where are you feeling unwell? Didn't Senior Taihao find a pharmacist to treat you?" Tian Xian avoided his gaze. "It's nothing. I just need to recuperate a little." It's just that I'm a girl, oh." Lu Chen immediately understood. He also had a younger sister, so he would not ask too much about a girl's matters. "Is it okay to drink wine? This wine is fine. The effect will be better after it's dissolved." Lu Chen was relieved. He waited for Tian Xian to dissolve the medicine before raising his glass. "Come, Xian, After drinking the wine, Lu Chen had just put down his glass. When he looked up, he saw that Tian Xian's face was slightly red, and there were fine beads of sweat on her forehead. "Xian, you. What's wrong with you? Is the effect of this medicine so strong?" I put a little too much." Tian Xian said with a red face. "Why do I feel hot all of a sudden?" "Lu Chen, are you hot?" I'm fine." "Xian, are you sure you're okay?" Lu Chen was a little worried. "That's strange. It shouldn't be." Tian Xian took out another medicine and looked at it. Then, she turned pale with fright. "Oh no, I took the wrong medicine." Lu Chen immediately became nervous. Then what should we do?" "I'll go find Senior Taihao." "Don't." Tian Xian pulled Lu Chen, her eyes a little hazy. "We don't have the antidote for this medicine." What should we do?" "Little Green is not here either." Lu Chen was worried. "Xian, how much time do we have left? Tell me what medicine you need." I'll find a way to find it immediately." Tian Xian's face became redder and redder, and her eyes became more and more seductive. She kept pulling open the clothes around her neck, revealing Lu Chen's snow-white skin. "It's too late. I took the Jade Passion Pill." "The medicine is already taking effect, Jade Passion Pill." Lu Chen was not good at alchemy, so he did not know what kind of pill it was. "Is this heat poison?" "It's not heat poison, it's love poison." As she spoke, Tian Xian suddenly stood up and pressed her body tightly against Lu Chen's body. "The only way now is for Big Brother Lu Chen to help me detoxify." Having a beautiful woman in his arms, this was Lu Chen's dream. Looking at the disheveled Tian Xian, Lu Chen did not know where he got so much saliva from. He could not even finish swallowing it all. Tian Xian was leaning against his chest. Her lips were slightly parted, and her eyes were full of desire. As a man who always craved beautiful encounters, Lu Chen almost exploded. However, his rationality won over his desire. "Senior Taihao is so good to me. How can I do such a despicable thing to you? Big Brother Lu Chen, don't think so much. You're saving me by curing me. I'm so hot." Tian Xian was about to take off her outer clothes. Just this alone was enough for Lu Chen to lose control. If she took off her clothes, Lu Chen knew that he would not be able to control himself when the time came. No, we're all friends. I can't do this." Lu Chen used all his strength to control his desire. He grabbed Tian Xian's hand and stopped her from moving. "Damn it, I've been in this world for so many years. It's rare for me to encounter such a good thing, but I can't do it. It's too bad." Lu Chen gritted his teeth and tried to keep himself rational. "That's right, Gray Crow mentioned something about the vitality pill. Little Green was afraid that I would be harmed outside, so he left me a few antidotes. They might be useful. Thinking of this, Lu Chen took out a small blue pill and stuffed it into Tian Xin's mouth. Little Green was indeed a master alchemist. The antidote immediately took effect. Tian Xin's flushed face returned to normal. Her eyes, which were full of desire, also became clear. Not long after, Tian Xin came back to her senses and saw that she was tightly clinging to Lu Chen. Her clothes were untidy, and her cheeks were red. It was too embarrassing. Lu Chen sat to the side and was silent for a long time. Then, he said, Xin, are you okay? Tian Xin lowered her head. I'm sorry, big brother Lu Chen. Sigh, you took the wrong medicine. How can I blame you? But next time, you must look carefully. You're lucky you met me. If you met a bad person, you would have suffered a great loss. Tian Xin nodded with tears in her eyes. Go and rest early, Lu Chen said. Okay. Tian Xin lowered her head and silently left the room. On the way back, Tian Xin's eyes were red. Master, I've already done this much, and big brother Lu Chen would rather give me the antidote than want me. He definitely doesn't like me. The little guy was so angry that his teeth were itching. That kid is really stupid. He doesn't even want me. He deserves to be single for the rest of his life. Master, didn't you say that other than you, no one else can make the antidote? Tian Xin said angrily. Who knew that Little Green would be able to refine such a high-grade pill? That's definitely a high-grade antidote. Sigh, I didn't succeed this time. It'll probably be difficult next time. On the other side, Lu Chen sat in front of the window in a daze. He couldn't fall asleep for a long time. The scene that had just happened still lingered in his mind. After a long time, Lu Chen let out a long sigh. His eyes were filled with resentment. Little Green, little beast, you two were cultivating far away. How could you ruin my plans like this? Why did you refine the antidote for no reason? If anyone wants to poison me like this, then let them do it. Do you think I'm afraid? Sigh, I've missed a beautiful encounter again. I don't know when I'll have such an opportunity again. Chapter 1169. The next morning, Lu Chen got the information Taihao gave him. He left the Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace and went straight to the Chosen Continent. This time, Lu Chen's purpose was to improve his strength. The Hyaming continent was originally a large planet. Unfortunately, 90% of it was covered by the sea and only 10% by land. There were not many colleges here, and their strength was relatively low among the level 6 continents. However, there was a famous forbidden area, the Grand Canyon of Sea Demons. Lu Chen went 10,000 meters deep and found the ocean star core. The barren sand continent was not small, but the climate was bad. Most of the land was desertified. At first glance, it looked like a desert. There were even fewer colleges here than in the Hyaming continent. People from other continents rarely came here. Lu Chen found the biggest desert in the barren sand continent. He waited for 2 months before he met the sand scorpion. He followed it into the world in the sand and went all the way down to find the barren sand star core. The Liuwu continent, the Imperial Miasma continent, and the Ice River continent. The less people there were and the worse the climate was, the more likely it was that the star core had not been exploited. Lu Chen traveled among these continents in a year. He encountered hundreds of monsters that he had never seen before and experienced many unimaginable dangers. Some found the star core, and some returned empty-handed. In a dense forest in the Green Field continent, Lu Chen was cooking. The Green Field continent was one of the more comfortable planets Lu Chen had visited in the past year. The forest here was dense, and the plants had strong vitality. Basically, they could not be eradicated. Therefore, although the environment was beautiful, it was not suitable to open a college. Harry Ball, Originator, Rhubarb, and Xiao Min went out to play. Lu Chen was busy cooking alone. After he finished eating, Lu Chen didn't see Little Furball and Little Originator come back. Lu Chen wasn't worried. After all, there weren't many people who could defeat Little Furball and Little Originator. They probably forgot to come back. Now, Lu Chen had reached the level of a 7-star Savage King. Cultivating next to the star nucleus would not only increase the attributes of his fighting soul, but also increased the 3 attributes of his own body very quickly. It was just that in the past, some powerful stellar cores could increase the upper limit of the physical body. However, the stellar cores that Lu Chen found recently did not have this effect. His upper limit of the physical body remained at 30 times the spiritual power and did not increase any further. I don't know if it's because my current physique can only reach the upper limit of 30 times. Lu Chen shook his head. Although the stellar nuclei he found were not as exaggerated as the stellar nuclei of the underworld, they were all stellar nuclei of large planets that he had carefully selected. Judging from the energy of the stellar nuclei, they were all extremely rich in spiritual power. It was fine if 1 or 2 of them didn't improve, but if 7 or 8 of them didn't improve, then it might not be a matter of luck. However, although the upper limit did not increase, the abundance of the large star core's spiritual energy had increased Lu Chen's current 3-dimensional attributes by quite a bit. No matter how high the upper limit is, it's useless. It's not bad to be able to increase the current 3-dimensional level. Lu Chen did not dwell on it any longer. In addition, Lu Chen's fire affinity had already reached an extremely terrifying level. After a few rounds of cultivation, his fire affinity had already reached 50,000. The true fire mysterious ice sword art required both ice and fire affinity to reach 20,000 to cultivate. However, Lu Chen's ice affinity was only 0. He had also tried to use the ice state of the 9 refined ice fire pearl to cultivate and increase his ice affinity. However, he discovered a very fatal problem. Every time his ice affinity increased by 1 point, his fire affinity would decrease by 2 points. In other words, these two were in a relationship where one decreased while the other increased. Lu Chen calculated for a moment. If I want both ice and fire affinity to reach 20,000, my fire affinity will need at least 60,000, as expected of an immortal technique. Ordinary people can't cultivate immortal techniques even if they obtain them. Lu Chen sighed. Fortunately, there was still plenty of time. At this rate, he should be able to increase his fire affinity to 60,000. At this moment, the little critter sent a telepathic message. Lu Chen checked the telepathic message. Dad, Sister Little Green has already refined the 8th grade Divine Buddha Golden Lotus Elixir. Lu Chen smiled. Little Green had refined a 7th grade elixir before. This time, Little Green had refined an 8th grade elixir, which meant that Little Green's strength had improved again. It seemed that Little Green had also been improving. He put away the telepathic message. Little Furball and the others had indeed returned. Little Furball's mouth was full of blood. It seemed that it had eaten meat again. Xiao Min sat on Little Originator's back and happily told Lu Chen about the wild beasts they had encountered. Little Furball had killed all of them. Rhubarb held the 9 Revolutions golden crow mirror in its mouth and was in a daze. Lu Chen suddenly realized that such a leisurely life was really pleasant. If Little Green and the little critter were also here, cultivating leisurely in this green field continent would also be a wonderful thing. No wonder so many people who were about to cross the tribulation chose to live in seclusion. If it were not for the 3-year agreement, Lu Chen would really want to settle down here. Time flew. It had been almost 2 years since Lu Chen went out to gain experience. The number of disciples in the Divinity Devil Academy had now reached 13,000, and this was under the condition that the academy had reduced the enrollment. If there were more people, the intentionless mountain would not be able to afford it. In the past 2 years, the strength of the Divinity Devil Academy had become stronger and stronger. Unless there was no restriction on the cultivation time of the disciples, or some old disciples of the Divinity Devil Academy came out and snatched some rankings from the Divinity Devil Academy, the other competitions were all swept away by the Divinity Devil Academy. Almost all the exchange disciples of the Divinity Devil Academy who went out would be ranked in the top 3 of the competition list of the major academies. This phenomenon was not strange to the disciples of other academies. There was no other way. After all, the disciples of the Divinity Devil Academy were all monsters. And the Divinity Devil list had already become the newcomer list that surpassed the Zhongxian Good Genius list, becoming the highest ranking list in Xingyuan continent. Even the Zhongxian Gu had to send out disciples to compete, and the top 5 of the Divinity Devil list were occupied by Yi Fan, Chu Tian, Xiao Zhan, Wu Xian, and Skyfall all year round. Among them, Xiao Zhan, Wu Xian, and Skyfall's rankings often changed. Sometimes, Chu Tian would even be pushed down to second place. But Yi Fan's first place had been in the dust for a long time, and no one could shake it. Many people said that if it were not for the solipsistic, Yi Fan would definitely be the genius with the strongest potential in the past few years. Yi Fan rarely responded to this. Only when asked would he say, "That's my dean, a teacher and a friend. Comparing myself to my master is disrespectful to my master." After the underworld invasion and the battle of the dark erosion, the 6th heaven seemed to have not been so peaceful for a long time. In the heavenly music parlor, a man of about 60 years old was wearing a sleeping robe with his chest open. He sat on the throne with beautiful women beside him, and there was good wine and food on the table. Below him, the current pavilion master of the heavenly music parlor, Lu Shui, Green Justice Hall, High Justice Hall, Elegant Justice Hall, and so on. Not only that, even the Purple Knight Emperor and a group of people from the Purple Heaven Palace were here. Even if very few people had seen this old man's true appearance, it was not difficult to guess who he was from the identity of the people standing below. It was the guy who had lived in the 9-star monarch realm for more than 600 years. Heavenly Music Old Ghost. Chapter 1170. Old Ancestor Tianyin, solipsistic, has been out training for 2 years. If we continue to drag on like this, I'm afraid things will change. Purple Knight Emperor changed his usual arrogant and despotic attitude and said respectfully. The man on the seat teased the beauty beside him. At this moment, he finally raised his eyes slightly and looked at Ziyi. Ziyi, are you dissatisfied with me? Purple Knight Son of Heaven hurriedly said, No, this junior wouldn't dare. It's just that I'm afraid that Lu Chen's strength will increase too quickly. Tianyin Old Ghost snorted coldly. So what if he's a 9-star human king? Can you compare with me? This, of course not. Who in the world doesn't know that although old ancestor Tianyin has yet to become an immortal, his strength is comparable to that of a genuine immortal? Tianyin Old Ghost smiled and shook his head. Whether or not I can compare to a true immortal, I don't dare to boast about it. However, as long as that kid hasn't gone through the tribulation, he can't possibly be my match. Lu Shui said to Purple Knight Emperor, don't be impatient. Our old ancestor has just finished his great work and has been practicing his cultivation technique for the past 2 years. Sharpening the axe won't delay the work of cutting wood. The heavenly sound Old Ghost smiled and said, My heavenly sound demonic technique has already been thoroughly integrated a year ago. Flowing water, why do you need to lie to him? This year, I will indulge in pleasure. What do you think? Purple Knight Son of Heaven took in a deep breath. It seemed like old ancestor Tianyin was dissatisfied with him. Old ancestor Tianyin, you are being too serious. You have been in seclusion for 100 years, and it is rare for you to come out of seclusion. Naturally, you need to relax a little. Only then did old freak Tianyin calm down and say impatiently, "All right, I'm staying in the sixth heaven for a long time and I don't want to be under anyone. That royal heaven immortal palace dares to call itself an immortal palace and command the sixth heaven just because it has a few more true immortals and loose immortals. It would have been fine if I hadn't come out of seclusion, but now that I have, the sixth heaven is no longer under the control of Taihao of the immortals. Send a letter of challenge to the Imperial Heaven Immortal Palace. 1 month later, in the Huashan continent, I will have a life and death battle with the 8 heavenly kings of the Immortal Palace. If he doesn't allow it, I will flatten the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace." As he spoke, Tianyin Old Ghost seemed to have thought of something. "I heard that Taihao's daughter is the number 1 beauty in the 6th heaven. I finally have a chance to take her in." Tianyin Old Devil was finally going to make his move. Everyone looked at each other excitedly. Fortunately, it's a pity that we snatched the immortal Emperor's Sumeru realm. That's a place of great opportunity in the 6th heaven. I've long been unhappy with the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace. This time, the old ancestor will make a move and let them know who is the strongest power in the 6th heavenly layer. If old ancestor makes a move, he will definitely flatten the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace. However, Purple Knight Emperor still seemed to be frowning. "Nephew Purple Knight, are you still worried about Yifan and Solipsistic?" Tianyin Old Devil immediately saw through Purple Knight's worries. Ancestor is indeed wise. If we don't get rid of these two, they'll probably become a huge problem in the future. Purple Knight Tianzi said. Old fogey Tianyin snorted coldly, "Don't worry. After I destroy the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace, I'll naturally go and take care of the two of them. Isn't it just God and demon defying fate? Without the complete set, it's just an ordinary item. And it's impossible for him to complete God and demon defying fate in this lifetime. I really don't understand what you have to worry about." Purple Knight Tianzi said, "Ancestor, actually, Lu Chen, that kid, not only does he have God and demon defying fate, he also has the Chaos Dragon God's bloodline, 2 great intent spaces, 3 super powerful battle pets, and the 2nd level of spirit chi refinement. In short, his strength is also extremely strong. And that guy changed the weather together with you, Ancestor. It's enough to show that his strength can't be underestimated." Old Fogey Tianin's face was somewhat unhappy as he said disdainfully, "Compared with me, he's not worthy. Very strong, right? Just nice. I also want to see how the strongest in the 6th heavenly layer that those people talk about will beg for mercy in front of me, Old Fogey Tianin." Hearing the old ancestor say this, Purple Knight Tianzi was finally relieved. Later, the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace received the Heavenly Music Pavilion's tactics. Old Fogey Tianyin challenged the 8 heavenly kings of the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace to a life-and-death battle on the Huashan continent. If they didn't agree, Old Fogey Tianyin would lead the Heavenly Music Pavilion, the Purple Heavenly Palace, and the other forces that submitted to him to flatten the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace. Xin looked at her father worriedly. Ever since her father became the master of the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace, his expression had never been so serious. The little person on Xin's shoulder also frowned. "Taihao, what do we do now?" Taihao took a deep breath. "Senior brother Ku Ruo, the Heavenly Music Pavilion has already announced this to the world. If I don't agree, they will have a good reason to attack. Moreover, the forces in the world will ridicule the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace for being cowardly. In the future, we will have no prestige to speak of. It seems that we have to ask the senior brothers to come out of seclusion." The little person was still worried. "I don't know what Dao Realm Old Fogey Tianyin has comprehended. Last time, he didn't dare to confront the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace head-on. I don't know either. None of the people we sent could bring back any news. Now, we can only be sure that it must be a very strong Dao realm. That's why he's so confident." No matter what, the Heavenly Music Pavilion's letter of challenge had already arrived. The Royal Heaven Immortal Palace had to accept it. Xin, let's go. Let's go to the Heavenly God Palace and ask the senior uncles to come out of seclusion. Tian Xin nodded, yes. Royal Heaven Immortal Palace, Heavenly God Palace. This place was extremely wide. At a glance, it was like a continent floating in mid-air. There were 8 huge statues around it. After arriving here, Taihao nodded to Tian Xin, the rest is up to you. After saying that, Taihao's body actually disappeared from the spot. TSK. To awaken the 8 heavenly kings in one go, Xin, you have to bleed a little. The little person said. Xin nodded, Master, you should go too. I will wake you all up. All right. After saying that, Ku Roa also disappeared. Out of the 3 who came, only Tian Xin was left. Tian Xin walked to the center of the 8 statues. There was a strange statue there. In the center was a hollow disc. Everywhere on the disc, there were stone tracks that extended outwards. The stone tracks led to the 8 god statues. Tian Xin stood in front of the disc and used a dagger to cut open her wrist. She allowed the blood to drip onto the disc and flow along the stone tracks. When the blood flowed to the front of the 8 god statues, the god statues suddenly moved. The 8 god statues moved to the side, revealing a stone coffin beneath the god statues. The stone coffin opened, revealing the entrance to another world inside. Not long later, 5 men and 3 women walked out from the teleportation door. These 8 people all had the demeanor of a transcendent being. Some were handsome and some were as elegant as fairies. Among the 8, there were Taihao's and Ku Roa's true bodies. However, seeing her father Taihao's true body and her master Ku Roa's true body, Tian Xin's eyes turned red, but she did not directly acknowledge them. Martial uncles, the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace has encountered a sudden change. Xin had no choice but to disturb martial uncle's cultivation. Taihao narrowed his eyes and looked at Xin. His tone was cold as he said, "What happened to the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace?" The person in front of her was her true father. However, Xin knew that since they were going to undergo the tribulation, they had already severed their familial ties. Therefore, in Taihao's eyes, this daughter of his was the same as any other disciple of the Royal Heaven Immortal Palace. As for that playful master of hers who liked to give her rotten ideas, it was the same. This was the world of the strong. A world without emotions. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.